Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2.5 hour late stream because I had what I'm going to refer to as a bile attack in the middle of the night, which I'm not going to explain to not gross anybody out, but if you're old, you understand what that is. So that cost me several hours of sleep. Cool. Let's talk about WoW and how I am the worst reviewer in the known history of the universe. If I could figure out a thing, there might be a timestamp here to skip ahead when we actually start Zangarmarsh. We also might not. We might just be sitting here talking about the review and the mentality and ideas that go into it. So, the first thing I want to talk about is why this isn't a lore. One of the things that several people have rather fairly brought up is that there are several aspects of the story specifically. God, I look so terrible. Look at my terrible outfit. It's so awful. That I was talking around or trying to explain during the lore run several years ago, like 6 or 7 years ago at this point, which this time around I've been giving negatives. Yeah, that is exactly how that should be. A lore run's job, I came up with a perfect quote in the middle of the night to discuss this. A lore run's job is to explain. A review's job is to critique. And so you could see how the two approaches to content come from completely different mentalities and perspectives. Now we're kind of done with lore runs for the most part, at least capital L lore runs, but it's a perfect way to try and encapsulate the variance between the two. Because if there's something that can be explained away, especially in lore, then that's the job of the lore runs, to try and either come up with that explanation or just speculate on the lore run, right? To try and say, okay, maybe this is why this is happening, or maybe this is where this is going. But in a review, I look at that and say, well, they're not actually explaining any of that in the game. None of that's actually here, and this dialogue says this, and this quest says this, therefore this is a negative. It's one of the reasons I gave several negatives to story for a lot of the stuff that was going on with the Blood Elves early on, because it really was bad, right? That's actually it. It's just, it crystallized in my mind the difference between a lore run and a review run, because the two very much are very, very different animals, even though on the surface level they could look very similar. And the incident with the Dwarf and the Night Elves is a perfect example of that. The second thing I want to talk about is how I am the worst reviewer ever. Some of you may or may not have noticed the gameplay and story axis have changed a little bit. That's because I decided, for the sake of clarity, to go ahead and rip out all of the stuff that is expansion agnostic. And I actually have it in a completely separate document, which I'm staring at right now. So that's all ripped out and pushed over there. And none of that, like, we might add or detract from that as we think about things in the future. Like, for example, I was just reminded that I had to add something for the pet battles for that recently. But all of that stuff, that's over in its own bubble and won't actually matter until we come up with our golden number, which won't be until we finish the launch content of War Within. So all you're seeing on the screen right now is mostly stuff that is BC specific. The reason that's all BC specific, the reason I say mostly, excuse me, is, as you'll notice, there's several things here. Anybody paying attention actually read the document, which I don't blame you if you haven't, because it's already 5 pages long, is there's things where there's like lots and lots and lots of question marks to help, visually indicate, hey, I need to come back and look at this. Or I put those little the equal signs, which is a great and easy way to be like, that's a bracket to indicate I need to do something there. Now, I'm going to use this to address something that Blade Tival specifically came up with first. He said, why have you only given one negative to the fact that you can't go do older raids? Which is, of course, total nonsense. Technically, I haven't given any negative to that yet, because that's still in debate. What we've kind of chewed on and decided on is we're going to go ahead and say, based on quality and quantity of raids, that will determine per expansion how many negatives we give for the fact that those raids are, in every way that matters, abandoned content. The fact that I functionally have to walk into Magtheridon by myself, even in order to even show it off to you, is something that is awful. And if you'll notice, look at negative number 62 on the list right now. You notice I have a list of the raids that qualify for BC. Karazhan, Gruul, Magtheridon, Hyjal, Serpent Shrine, Eye, Black Temple, and Sunwell. You notice Zul'Aman is not on that list because it doesn't exist anymore. Thanks, Blizzard. So, all of that is something we're going to gauge and debate, but I obviously physically cannot decide how many negatives it is until we've already reviewed all the remaining raids that are in that. So that's not going to be codified until we finish Sunwell, which is going to be pretty much towards the very end of the entire series. So obviously that sucks. Now, something that nobody has brought up, which I find interesting, but something that I've been chewing on this entire time, is whether or not it's fair to review the raids at all, considering the fact that you can only really experience them by going back and one-shotting everything, right? And I have been thinking about that, actually. So, the harsh reality is it could easily, and I mean easily, be argued that we shouldn't review those raids, that we should consider those abandoned content and just walk away from them. And so that shouldn't count for the content. Here's the thing. Even if we do rip those out of, say, bronze numbers or golden numbers, the fact is I want that review stuff to be there because there is an extremely high chance that WoW will at some point go back and make that stuff more playable. They've already been getting better and better and better about this, especially lately with Dragonflight and War Within. And with the new follower dungeon stuff and the follower raid, which is in the game now, there's a really good chance that that's going to be something that they backport. So I'd rather do my due diligence now and review the stuff now and just have it there. And then like we could put an asterisk there, right? Make sense? So that's kind of where we're at with that. I've decided to go ahead and basically acknowledge that those raids exist, and then assuming they ever get to the point where you can actually reasonably go experience those raids, then we're good. And that's the end of that. Excuse me. Not really, Spartan. It's something I've actually tried before as part of a tech test for this very thing. Pax and I, and a few friends of mine and I, tried to show off some of the encounters in this place. So here's what we came up with as an asterisk-y thing. The way it would work is you'd have to bring one level 80, probably me, actually, and then at least a tank and a healer who's someone else, and then we just sit there and let the boss kind of exist for a few minutes while they're kind of doing their thing, and then I one-shot it, and that's what will be required. And it's not functionally any real different from me just standing there letting the boss do his mechanics like I showed off with Magtheridon, right? For example, to use a specific example, let's say I brought an at-level and at-geared tank and an at-level and at-geared healer to Magtheridon. So they'd go sit there, and then they would die to the mechanic I told you would kill you, and then I'd finish talking, and then I'd kill him. And if you're paying attention, there's no real difference there between, you know, you being there and I being there. Also, that means relying on other people for the raids, which is something I'd rather avoid. Rax is also correct. Having the documented stuff there, you notice I keep everything very, very, very well clearly indicated. This is something I do very much on purpose for when I have to go back and audit stuff. I did this with F14 as well. So going back and saying, oh shoot, they changed the chess event, it would be very, very easy to go back and search for the chess event and then adjust it as is needed. That's why the raids are there now. Sorry. Bit of a long discussion, but I just wanted to explain where that's at. In short, though, Blade Travel, I actually agree with you completely. The fact that raids are functionally abandoned content is awful. The fact that dungeons you have to jump through hoops to experience those is also pretty freaking bad. So both of those are not great. And I have been giving negatives for those because that's awful. Moving on. Okay, so the next major thing was, Dear Lore, you're literally Hitler. Sincerely, Mr. Red. Okay, here we go. Scroll up a little bit here. Actually, I think the next one is going to be Rax. I think he finished typing first. Here we go. Okay, so Rax. So, Rax says that small quality of life or UI features that received bespoke triple positives of WoW would often get reduced to aggregates in other games. I've actually rechecked myself on that 3 separate times. And allow me to just say, no, I didn't. No offense, but no, I didn't. I've actually rechecked the all of that stuff over, and it's in the private document now, but it's all the stuff that doesn't matter for expansion, all the agnostic stuff, and like I could just go down the list right now. So let's see, modding. Yep, okay, so that's done. HUD got 1 positive. Minimap got 2 positives because it's a really good minimap. The map got 3 positives because it's an extremely good map. Inventory got 3. Quality of life got 2 here for the reagent bank and the crafting system. Spell tooltips got 2 positives. Visual distinction got 2 positives. Mod accessibility, that's the macros, got triple positives, right? My sister startled the crap out of me. Hello, sister. Sure. I'm just standing here, but sure. And I'm just going down the list to explain how much.
You're still in Hellfire.
Actually, no. But a lot of people have been fairly bringing up issues with the review, and I am addressing them point by point. Also, a lot of this is going to sound like I'm saying you're all wrong, which I am. But I'm not trying to... No, I'm serious. But I'm not trying to be mean about it. It's just that you have dressed up an issue. I have thought about it and reconsidered and decided that, no, it's not an issue. Okay? Moving on.
What was the issue?
Well, for example, I've given way too many positives for the options interface, HUD, quality design, quality of life design, etc., which is what you're staring at the screen right now. Ignore the paragraphs I've written to justify each of these. You know, visual distinction, 1 positive. Calendar, 1 positive. Info and game, 2 positive. That's part of the tooltip thing. Chat filter, that's 1 positive. Dungeon journal, that's a triple. Death recap, 1 positive. Mount tab, 1 positive. Right? You say that I'm being too bespoke, and I'm not actually sure I agree with it. And then we get down to like cosmetic stuff, which is like the transmog system and all that, which I don't need to explain why transmog is like omega positives. It's a really, really good system.
I think y'all forget that this is a really big game. Like, he is currently reviewing game 2 of 11. How many expansions? 11. So this game is going to have a lot of positives, like a lot more positives and negatives than you would think, simply because this isn't a one-shot game you play through the story and then you're there. This is a series of games. Although, I think 15 negatives is a few too many. A few too few.
Well, this is just for not agnostic stuff. If you think that's too few, then you haven't seen the 108 negatives that I've given
that's
BC.
Much better
this
list.
is just BC.
That's a much better list.
This is just BC and the first 4 zones in Hellfire.
Okay.
5 zones, and we're up to 108 negatives. The fact that some people think I'm being too positive about this amuses me greatly, because I actually was worried that I was being too negative about it. Anyways. Sorry, point being, it's a fair thing to bring up, and it's absolutely valid, but again, I have gone through this list. I stand by it. Moving on. Now, this is an interesting one. So, Rax brings up something. Now, I can't actually disagree with this.
I completely disagree with this.
What?
WoW has been prioritizing its onboarding heavily, and that's a negative.
Wait, what? Where?
At least that's what I haven't read the whole thing, obviously.
Oh, no, okay, so, hang on. There are vanilla remnants on the list. That is true, Huthor. And
there are vanilla remnants in the game.
In the game, yeah, I know. It's admittedly, that's kind of a gray asterisk-y area. Again, it was something we debated for over a year, actually, before this run even started, is do we count things like Molten Core? And do we count things like, Ruins of Ahn'Qiraj? The answer boiled down to yes, because it is content that's in the game. It is something that's still accessible. And it is content that is absolutely terrible.
Yes.
But more to the point, a lot of people, myself included, for historical reasons, wanted to see how bad Molten Core really is. Oh, speaking of which, if you type !WOW into chat right now, you will find a sheet, a spreadsheet. And this is something I use to help check me on a lot of these things. You may or may not notice that it's not doing great on the zones so far. But I keep track. It's a very, very quick. It's a direct comparison, is what it is. I do it for zones and I do it for instances. Molten Core's negative 24 to everything, by the way.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I know you say Hygel's worse, and I actually understand why you say it. But Hygel is only negative 18.
Hygel's a smaller raid.
It is a smaller raid. It is.
That's why.
I
am not feeling better, Ken.
Yeah, clearly. And I've been having sleeping issues, which is why I was 2.5 hours late to stream today.
Oh.
So, yeah, I woke up at like 3 and then get back down to about 6.
Anyway, if he's saying that onboarding,
we'll get
prioritizing onboarding is a negative, I completely disagree
he's not.
With
he's
that.
not. I've read Rax's thing. He's not that unreasonable. I mean, he's pretty unreasonable, but you don't get that. I'm kidding. So
Rax, you are the most unreasonable person in the world.
He can't be. Huthor's right there. No, I actually agree with you, Primarch.
Surpassed only by Huthor.
And that's the whole reason why I like to have that immediate comparison point of the WoW spreadsheet. I call it the Mega Man sheet because I actually started this concept for the Mega Man games, so I can compare bosses and levels directly to each other across, like, the 11 or so Mega Man games there are.
There you go.
Go lay down. Don't forget your phone on my shoulder. There you go. Um, oh, hang on, let me scroll this up.
No, I was looking at that.
You want me to read aloud?
No.
Oh,
I
wait.
do want you to not talk while I'm reading, because I can't read and listen at the same time while I'm sick. Okay, maybe I need you to read it out loud, because I've read the same
I don't think
sentence
it's a
3
negative
times.
impact. I think the onboarding is great. The problem only arises when the onboarding doesn't really include an easy way to easily get into the story, especially for someone like me who wants to go through chronologically.
Ah, okay, that's
Valid.
a valid point.
It is, and I have absolutely and will continue to give negatives to this. Like, the fact that Chromie time involves so many hoops to jump through is irritating at best. And remember, you might fairly say that you don't need Chromie time, and that's kind of true.
Is there an open one?
No, go ahead.
They look interesting.
Your daughter didn't like them. I think they're interesting. I agree with that assessment.
They look interesting. They have a little thing inside them.
But like, as someone mentioned earlier, raids are almost always MSQ. Like, to use a direct example, last night we did Magtheridon's Lair right over there. Magtheridon's Lair is the final culmination step of the entire Fell Orc bloodline quest chain that's been going throughout Hellfire Peninsula, right? So that's kind of main story. Like if you didn't do Magtheridon's Lair, they'd be like, oh my god, we've discovered that they have a pit lord, and that pit lord is Magtheridon. Oh my god, what do we do? End story.
Somebody somewhere killed them.
Yeah, someone else goes and kills them. Cool. Now, I mean, that's actually a really bad example because there's very little story to Magtheridon. But think about that for a second. Like, honestly, Black Temple is a much better example of a raid that is absolutely main story
But conversely, like, you compare this, you were telling me, it's one of the reasons I haven't. No, Czar, that's exactly what I was doing. He had several in his hairline that needed taken care of. What was I saying?
We were talking about, man.
FF14, you told me that, like, it does, like, the exact opposite. It forces you to chronologically play through everything before you can get to current content.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a new FF14 player, find that massively intimidating, and is one of the reasons why, despite the fact that I very much enjoy the game, have not progressed in that game and have no real desire to, because I would like to be able to play current content with my friends without having to go through. It's not that it's intimidating, it's demoralizing.
Now, interestingly enough, WoW arguably has the same overall problem, just inverted.
Hey, Bragwin.
Which is pretty much exactly what you just said, but I'm just summarizing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because in WoW, doing all the content is intimidating, but if you want to jump ahead and just join us, you can do that. In fact, it's really, really easy. Honestly, a little bit too easy to do that. Talia, to use a specific example, Talia just started playing WoW last week. She's already level 70. And
Your
she
gear
does
is
not...
gorgeous.
I know, look at my transmog, it's so great. It's not even my transmog, it's just what I have on. She's 70 already. She's ready to start War Within. And that's with her meandering solo without knowing what she's doing while skipping quests.
I can't drink milk.
And I want you to think, yeah, she's lactose intolerant. I want you to think for a moment, for those of you who understand WoW, how crazy it is that she was just skipping over quests. For those of you who have not heard me say this 1,000 times, quests are meat content when it comes to this game. Yes, there's dungeons, yes, there's raids, but the quest is the majority of the content. The main content, even. So, like, huh? Oh, I agree with that.
WoW is simultaneously one of the shortest games you will ever play and one of the longest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like when Talia was like, yeah, I'm so undergeared, and I was so confused by that. I was like, how could you possibly be undergeared? And then it just slowly dawned on me.
Reaper, it's not that I dislike the idea of starting from the beginning. It's the idea that I am playing a game that is intended for me to play socially, and to get to the content where my best friend Destiny is.
Yeah.
I have to play through
hundreds and
hundreds of hours of content that they not only can't help me with, other than just running around with me and helping me kill shit.
Anyways.
Some of the content I physically can't access with them.
Moving on. We've discussed this.
I don't dislike Final Fantasy 14.
No, I know
It's
you don't.
noteworthy. I just like the fact that WoW allows us to do it socially.
I do like options. It is true. What I really wish is that WoW. Honestly, I wish we kind of had a little bit of both in each other. As usual, cross-pollination is a great thing.
These are yummy.
You want another bag? Because I don't really like them that much. Like they did that, and you know what I mean when I said they did that. Because that's not the first time that's happened. Anyway. No, Lord Caramel.
No, it is not Destiny the streamer.
No,
It's a teacher friend of mine.
Mhm.
And that's not how you spell her name.
Anyways. But yeah, no, she's not.
And she's not an asshole.
Yeah, I was about to say, do not confuse. Yeah, no, I wish both games cross-pollinated a bit more. I wish WoW had a guided story mode.
That would be really cool.
You have the tech. It's in the game. I know. I'm currently using it. I am currently in Chromie time. The tech exists. All they have to do is line it up in order and then implement it with a freaking switch. Yes?
Can you imagine being level 80, like mythic raid geared, and then turning around and hopping in and being like, hey, I need you to go get me 10 goblin ears.
Done.
But I only want the left ones.
Only the left ones. You've
and they
got
have
it.
to be pristine.
Yeah. But
then as a level 80 having to go and fight like elite level 80 goblins because it scales to your eye level.
Yep. But yeah, no, they
it would be glorious and horrible all at the same time. It would be like being back in BC.
Yeah. And I would love for FF14 to have some kind of option to just be like, can I onboard a bit more and just kind of skip ahead a little bit?
Yeah.
And what's funny is I understand completely why that hasn't been much of an option lately. But with Dawn Trail, we suddenly have a really good reason to be like, reset, right?
Huh?
So you remember how Legion was the end of the Warcraft story, and then we skip over those two, and then it was, and then we skip over the two in the middle, and then Dragonflight was a new chapter, like a soft reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn Trail's the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you start as a brand new character in Dragonflight, it works. Just like if you start as a brand new character. Look, I have no control over this. Don't ask me. So if you start a brand new character and just jump into Dawn Trail, I think that could actually work.
It's hot. I can't decide if I'm hot or if I'm
I know, it's just, I was just verifying that I do in fact have the fan on, which I do.
You do. It's hot.
It's
not actually hot. It's just
no, it's not.
I'm hot.
It is warmer than I'd like, but but yeah, you get the idea, right? I feel like both games could cross-pollinate. But we've gotten extremely off topic. Let me bring this right back to the second point. I think it's actually fourth now that Rax brought up. So Rax brings up
Rax, you're wrong.
that I do actually think Rax is wrong, but I do still think the game deserves the negatives for presentation, especially at this point. As we've already talked about, its cutscenes are so bad. I've already given multiple negatives to them because they're just ridiculous, right? The game essentially mandates you paying attention at all times to keep up with the story. Now, that's not necessarily a
Guild
bad
Wars
thing.
2 is only acceptable to play if you have somebody dragging you through it.
I have no idea what she's talking about here. Yeah, Guild Wars 2, let's leave that discussion for another day. Yes, Lunar, I don't plan to transmog my gear at all either.
It costs gold to do that.
Yeah, I don't have gold. I got like 1,200 gold. I don't have gold.
You're rich.
Actually, I am pretty rich at
Time
this
to go
point.
buy flying.
Oh, okay, done. Woo! Woo! Honestly, Giga would be a better person to get through Guild Wars 2. She's much more fond of it and knows it better.
Doing my best, Blade Turbo.
Yeah, Guild Wars 2 has the same problem every single MMO has. The first expansion sucks.
I have a zip right where my glasses sit.
That's very
popped
strange.
it
I actually
earlier.
can't see it because
Yeah,
of the light.
I popped it earlier, but it's still sore.
Yep. There's the mount that essentially wings in WoW. Oh god, I'm not sure because there's so many mounts in this game.
You don't have one. We have lots of sit-on mounts. He has a mount that turns him into a dragon. Does that count?
I don't think that's quite because I know what you were thinking of. There is literally a wing mount at F14, which I need to get now because it's the second mount I've ever liked at F14. That sounds like a dig. I don't mean it as one, but I saw that. I was like, oh, I need that.
No, that's
Um,
no.
I'm just looking at things I
Perfect.
don't recognize. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna go with no. I
It
think,
would be one you don't have.
here, tell you what, I'll get on my surfboard just for you, Euro.
Yeah,
I don't remember where I got it.
I'm pretty sure it's a dragon racing one.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Anyways, now I'm just losing my train of thought. I was going to talk to Rax, right? Okay, so Rax,
You're wrong.
you're wrong. But no, for real, hear me out for just a second. One of the things, yes, look, one of the things that Rax mentioned is that you need to know Warcraft 3 to know WoW's lore. Allow me to quietly disagree with that. Let me brush away all the knowledge of the lore, the games, the books, the comics, everything else. My sister, I'm going to brush my sister away. She's going to go lay down and feel better.
No, I don't want to lay down. I've been laying down.
You have to feel better. That's the only part I care about. Whether you stand or do jumping jacks or go swimming or sit upside down or run a marathon. I don't care as long as you feel better.
I don't know how to do that.
God damn it.
I took drugs.
Drugs help. Do you want a charcoal?
What's charcoal gonna do?
It grabs toxins. It absorbs toxins as it's going through your system.
Sure.
I'm not going to give you any of my water.
Poisoning.
No offense. So you don't get my water.
Yeah, no. You started to ask me earlier if I wanted a water, and I was like, I'm not drinking your water.
Anyways, so hang on. Now I will admit, and this is my fault, and for that I apologize, but we've been just chatting a lot because these zones kind of suck.
You haven't been chatting. You haven't been chatting with them a lot. You've been monologuing at them.
I have also been monologuing.
You have been turning this review into a lore run
Look,
because these zones suck.
These zones do suck. They do suck. Do me a favor. Look at that WoW document. Look at the zones thing for a second. Like, -5 to Azuremist, -3 to XR, -7 to Bloodmist, -9 to Ghostlands, -8 to Hellfire. Oh, by the way, really quick aside. Some people have said that I have given too few negatives to Hellfire. I actually double-checked myself on that, and I don't agree. And the reason why is because while this is arguably one of the worst zones in the game, that's not true anymore. This was arguably one of the worst zones of the game. But you know why it isn't? I say without hyperbole that dragon flying makes several zones better than they should be. I want you to really process how much this zone sucked back when it came out. I want you to really think about here. Let's assume we have a fast mount, because we probably do. We might not, in the interest of fairness. But we don't have any form of flying when we're doing this zone, at 60. We might have a fast mount. So, like, just let me... Why wouldn't you have flying back then? So, when this game came out, flying required 70. When BC came out, flying required 70 and a lot of gold. When you are 60, you're not 70. Now, hang on. I might be going too fast for you here. So 60 and 70 are actually different. I'm sorry. I'm being a dick. I apologize. The point being, check this out. I'm going to actually run from Thrallmar to Falcon's Post just to explain this. I want you to really understand why this zone isn't getting more negatives. So, because remember, we are reviewing this game as it is now. That has always been our approach, with like the only asterisk being the launch negatives, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start this run. Now, we've actually tested. In fact, we've double tested. Thank you again. I can't remember who did that, actually. I think it was Fife. Someone actually triple checked for me. Even if you're a brand new account who has never played the game before, ever, the moment you hit 20, you get dragon flying. And allow me to say, once again, that is a really good decision. Not locking it behind some bullcrap NPC that no one tells you about. Not locking it behind some goddamn quest in a random expansion that nobody's heard of. If they had gone with what it kind of originally was, which was you have to go into like a separate expansion, go to a quest chain up to a point, talk to an NPC, then unlock it, every time you hit 20, that would be awful. No, it's 20, Linareth. It is 20. At 10, you get a mount. At 20, you get dragon flying. Anyways, that would have been awful. Imagine every single stupid character having to go all the way to Dragonflight, no matter what you're doing, and then having to do the quest of Dragonflight, and then getting the unlock, and then going back and doing whatever you have to do. That would be terrible, but no, instead you just have it. Notice I'm still yammering, by the way, as I'm going through this. So, moving on. Rack specific, one of these days. Yeah, at 10 you just kind of have access to mounting. There are some asterisks to that for new characters, just to be interesting, just to be relevant. We're almost there, by the way. This probably doesn't feel like a long period of time because I've been yammering this entire time, but try to imagine how many quests go back and forth across this zone. Like, obviously you could just flight path there, but like that's not getting across the point. Because once I find, I'm so impatient. I just want to. I keep having to resist the urge to just dragonfly the rest of the way. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're almost there. We're almost there. Just a little bit longer. One of these days I'll actually respond to Rax's thing. No, this is a Lotro zone. It absolutely is. Several BC zones are like this. But Hellfires might actually be the worst like this. At least Netherstorm and Shadowmoon are designed with flying in mind, because you can be 70 before you go to those. But this zone? Okay, we did it. We made it here. Woo! Okay, now we have a quest to go back to the pools. All right, let's go back to the pools. I'm going to make this point. Rax says that the game is a little bit too impenetrable story-wise. Blade Taval says this as well, when it comes to its narrative. And, again, I do quietly disagree with that, and I absolutely take blame myself. If I was doing this in like a no commentary kind of a thing and just reading the quests as we go, first of all, we'd be going a lot faster. But second of all, it'd probably be a lot more boring. But third of all, you'd probably have a lot easier time of following the quests. So let me address a very specific thing. Who the hell's Kael'thas? Here's the better question to that. Who cares? I know that sounds like a strange statement, but speaking personally, and someone who knows where the story is going, not knowing who Kael'thas is doesn't really do anything with regards to whether or not you are being able to keep track of the story, okay? To kind of prove my point a little bit, let's assume for a moment that you have done exactly the path I've been doing. You made a brand new character, okay? Yeah, ignore the Reaver. He's just trying to get in the way here. You made a brand new Draenei, did the first few zones. We're like, yeah, okay. And then you did a brand new Blood Elf and did the first few zones. Hang on, we're at the pools. Quest. Okay, now I go turn in. So, and then you come to Hellfire Peninsula. If you're paying attention to the quests, the story is there in the game explaining what we're doing and why. Let me explain to you the story from a brand new character's perspective, and I'll try to summarize this as best as I can, so forgive me. A group of people who used to be natives to Draenor called Draenei have fled to Azeroth from Outland. I know I'm already getting several names in. Bear with me, please. They fled here because they are fleeing from the forces of an evil group called the Burning Legion. You know they're evil because they're called the Burning Legion. Also, there's quite a few references to the demons involved therewith. So, they're fleeing here, and they get chased after by Blood Elves, who refer to themselves as Sun Fury. Now, I distinguish the Sun Fury thing, but that's important for something that's going to come up in a second, even if you're a brand new player. So the Sun Fury show up, and they're like, rawr. And the whole first arc for the Draenei is fighting back against the Sun Fury, trying to close the portals to Outland, and try to connect with the forces on Azeroth. Boom. There's your Draenei story. We're back! We did it! Okay, let's turn in these quests. Okay, now we're getting a big quest to go over here. So then you go make a Blood Elf. And you're like, okay, let's play these evil guys. But they're not quite evil. I'm like, they're definitely evil because of bad writing. But for the most part, they're just surviving. Like, they're barely struggling. And there's quest after quest after quest and visual storytelling, which is all constantly telling this tale that the Blood Elves are a survivalist species. They are at the point where they are legitimately facing an extinction possibility. They are doing almost everything they can to just try and hold on to their tiny spit of land, seeking allies with the Horde, actually originally the Alliance, but the Horde Alliance, and trying to reach the promised land that their leader, Kael'thas, has promised to them. There you go. That's the Blood Elf story arc right there. First two zones. I could mention things about the Wretched and the magical addiction, but all that's just flavor at this point, right? So then we get to Hellfire Peninsula. When we get here, we get a few more additional pieces and things that probably don't make as much sense, but most of the bones of this is stuff that's present. Hang on a second. Quest. Okay, now we got to go back. We haven't even met Kael'thas yet, Spartan. Who are you talking about? So, You get to Hellfire Peninsula, and several major story threads are going throughout it. The most important one is the Fell Orcs. When we get here, there's a whole bunch of orcs with red skin who are our enemies. And we're trying to figure out how there's Fell Orcs, why there's Fell Orcs, and what's going on with that. As we spend some time going through quests, and as we spend some time going through the dungeons, and eventually the raid, we eventually find out that there's some group has managed to enslave a massive demon and is draining the demon's power to artificially imbue orcs with fell energy. Okay, so that's what the Fell Orcs are, and that's where they're coming from, and that's that story arc. The next story arc is the Blood Elves again. Okay, we're back. Oh, hang on, I got another quest to go to the Pools of Agaron. Let me go back to the Pools of Agaron. So, the Blood Elves are just continuing the trend they were already on. There's this pilgrimage that they're trying to do. And the pilgrimage is them trying to reach the Promised Land. This actually isn't it. This is just step one of the path. The first thing we find out is even though everything's going to be, it's going to be beatific and amazing and wonderful, and multiple characters and multiple quests indicate how wonderful and amazing this Promised Land is that they're going for. When we finally get to... Hang on, I'm going to break character for just a second here. When we finally get here, what do we find in Falcon Wing Post? We find 2 buildings, a bunch of people on the verge of death, and a giant medical outpost, because people are literally dying on the road on this pilgrimage. So the survivalist people who can't afford to take any losses are having issues even crossing the first hurdle on their way there. And that's it. There's your story. There's your plot, if you prefer, for everything we've covered so far. Now, I hope that actually explains a little bit better what's going on right now and why. And yeah, this is still BC. BC had story, as I think I've explained. But that's one of the reasons why the story positives are the way they are. If you pay attention, and again, I've got this tracked, the only zones that have actually gotten main story quest positives so far are Eversong, Azure Mist, and Hellfire Peninsula. Go figure, those are the zones that primarily discuss the plot lines I just explained to you. Some of them, Hellfire Peninsula has one good secondary Prime Opt quest chain. There's a couple of bits of like background lore for several of them. And then obviously there's a lot of visual storytelling and audio storytelling because presentation. One of the things that Blizzard has and always will be good at is story presentation. I can actually explain that because I'm literally standing right next to one. Obviously there are quests that explain that, but just going here and seeing this giant medical spot here, and this is dominating the entire outpost, says a story. This is what visual storytelling means right here. And this is the kind of idea. Like, yeah, this is... Hellfire Peninsula looks like this. And has tons of demons in it. There are other things going on. But a lot of that is visual. So I hope that answers that and helps with the onboarding thing. I do admit it is predominantly my fault that I've not been conveying the story that is in the game reasonably well. But you see why I say you don't need Warcraft 3 to understand what's going on, right? Okay, Blood Elves. Who are one of the Blood Elves? Doesn't really matter. They've had their teeth kicked in. If you actually, there's plenty of quests in Eversong that clearly indicate it was the Scourge, but you don't know what the Scourge are. Except you do, because they're undead. That's easy to understand, right? Undead swarm, hit the elves, they're on the verge of death. Cool, right? So that's cool, and that's why they're on the verge of death, and that's why they're desperately trying to reach out to their leader, Prince Kael'thas, because they mentioned that several times, and he has offered them a promised land. All the information you need is right there in WoW, specifically, regardless of Warcraft 3. Yeah, WoW is actually very simple on the surface. I think it's actually one of the bigger reasons why so many people say it has no story, or that people just kind of don't read the quest text. I'm going to admit purely personally that that's kind of physically painful to hear, considering the depth and breadth and quality of the storytelling that is on display in this very game. Even in BC, some of the quest text is still good. It's not great, as I haven't given any specific positive for that yet. Actually, no, the Promised Land is right over there, but we'll talk about that much later. They haven't even seen the Promised Land yet, have they? So hang on. So that was Rax's big complaint. Let me scroll down a little bit more. So Mr. Red says, Lord, you're dumb and I hate you. Can I shoot you in the face? Yes. I mean, yeah, exactly, Rex. I mean, people who skip cutscenes in FF14, right? It drives me bonkers. I love FF14 to death, and even I am rather critical of FF14's empty text problem. And the idea of skipping cutscenes just it's like ripping nails, right? Anyways, so Mr. Red, Mr. Red actually, I actually addressed this already, but I want to say this out loud. Mr. Red mentioned how pretty much exactly what Blade Chaval just said, that visual storytelling shouldn't count. That having brickwork, doodads, visual storytelling, music direction, sound cues, all this stuff that isn't someone saying, "This is what's happening right now," shouldn't count when it comes to a story. I am going to go ahead and quietly disagree with that, because Mr. Red is literally Hitler. I mean, I'm kidding. What I do actually mean, though, is that I can't not give credit to stuff like this. I know I keep using this example, but it's just because I happen to be next to us. A lot of work goes into these kind of things. A lot of work goes into which doodads are placed where and how relevant they are. Now, it's not just like, it's not about filling the scene. It's about telling the story. You know, you walk into a room and there's an empty crib in the side, and a woman who is sitting there by herself, and she's talking to you, and she gives a request, and blah, blah, blah. You don't really need the game to tell you this woman has either been wanting a child or lost her child and has never been able to get over that. You don't need that, because environmental storytelling is a thing, right? You don't need any kind of additional dialogue flat out telling you that. And yeah, I should probably mention I'm a little biased here, because visual storytelling, the environmental storytelling, I think is what that's actually called, that's Blizzard's bread and butter. It has been since Warcraft 2, I would say. At the very least, it's been that way since StarCraft. So, kind of a thing. But the reason this is being brought up specifically is because Mr. Red was talking about Shadowlands, a terrible expansion. So, Shadowlands is absolutely going to take it in the pants when it comes to certain aspects of its plot, especially since the jailer is the single worst character in the history of the franchise. And let me tell you, that is saying something. That is cool. I agree with that, Yara. And that's visual storytelling, isn't it? But I do think Shadowlands isn't going to be as bad as people think it is, because there is good stuff in Shadowlands. The example I brought up on Discord earlier was Bwansamdi and everything to do with him. He has his own quest chain in Shadowlands, and it's kind of an awesome chain, not the least of which because it's Bwansamdi. And there's like the Kyrians and the soul connection thing that they do. I love how Maldraxxus operates. It's some wonderful world building. I love how Revendreth operates. It's some more wonderful world building. So that's all great, right? There's going to be pluses to story in Shadowlands, regardless of the fact that the main plot of Shadowlands is really, really terrible. I know some people have said, this is a common argument we get on this channel, and this review system. A lot of people say that a game shouldn't get the kind of credit it does for all the visual and environmental storytelling it does. For example, Obsidian should have extremely terrible pluses to story, because so much of Obsidian's actual storytelling is the environmental stuff. And no matter how many times I go back to that argument, I just find myself disagreeing. Just looking around, this is a huge portion of storytelling. I mean, there's a giant red crystal just jutting out of the rocks over there. Do you see that? So, anyways, hang on. So now we get down to Blade Chaval. Blade Chaval says, "You suck. I hate you. May the hand of the devil strike you down." So obviously, Blade Chaval brings up the same general problem that Rax did, the onboarding and the storytelling. And again, I'll take ownership of that myself. I don't have, the second thing Blade Chaval mentions actually amuses me. The aesthetic. It looks like a 20-year-old PS2 game, and the transmogs everyone's so proud of don't excite me because they're pretty plain-looking textures stretched across those meshes. I legitimately think FF11 looks better. I have nothing I can add to that, to be quite honest with you. Obviously, we're in BC stuff here, so I'm just going to move past that. I do get the point, and again, I can relate to it, because I think One Piece looks like garbage. I hate the aesthetics of One Piece, but that's preference, right? Like, I would never actually say One Piece has bad art, because that would be stupid. Yeah, this is 17-year-old content you're looking at right now. God, this stupid interface thing is going to drive me bonkers. Please. I know a lot of people who really like One Piece's aesthetics. And again, duh, right? Aesthetics are aesthetics. I could go to Hallowfall, but I'm not going to because I need to be in position. Assuming we ever actually do Zangarmarsh today. Well, you know what? I'll just use the outfit I'm currently wearing. This right here is a transmog I'm actually rather proud of. It's one of the only bespoke suits I use in the entire game. Now, I'm not trying to sell you on it, Blade 12, but you cannot look at this and tell me that this looks like PS2 graphics. Ignore the background for a second. Just look at the character. Just look at the model. I am rather fond of this. And yes, several people have already caught the joke. This is the Warden's gear that I'm wearing on a Demon Hunter. It's a bit better. This is very close to current age content. Well, actually, more like, this is very close to current content. This actually is current content. This thing on my back here just came out this month. Yeah, don't look at the background. Don't look. It's just there. There's no background. See, there's no background. Now, interestingly enough, this is what we would call sprite work. I have given no positives for sprite work yet, but that's because I have a whole other system for doing that, and we're going to do that later on. And yes, obviously, the Blood Elf is wearing the Night Elf insignia. It also fits really well with the Warden motif. And I've got this old green, gold, and purple thing going on, which I'm rather fond of. I also think the horns complement it nicely, but that's just me. Oh yeah, speaking of which, I kind of mentioned this.
Oh, I have just the thing to wander around.
So I actually do have a BC suit. It looks like this. Because this is every single piece that you see on this outfit up here is actually a piece of BC gear. And that's about what BC looks like. I will not wear that. I actually have one theme for each expansion. There's Pandaria, there's Wrath, there's Kata. Warlords, very brutish. Legion, gotta have Legion, very important. It would be thematic, but no, I'm good. This is my main as of this point in time, or at least the closest thing I have to a main right now, because Demon Hunters are the best class in the game. The amount of design that goes into Demon Hunters is incredible. But anyways, sorry. So let me continue to address Blade 12's point. Sorry. Oh, that looks beautiful. That is so beautiful. I love it. So Blade 12, hang on, I lost the screen. Blade 12 then mentions, I have a concern you're overlooking problems in the game because you have all the necessary information and experience for them to work. And similarly, an overly rosy view of the good parts because you spend so much time familiar with them. Allow me to professionally say that I find that statement insulting. The idea and statement that I'm going to go ahead and be rosy-goggled on anything for any reason whatsoever is a legitimate professional insult, and I will take it as such. Horde first. Moment. I gotta find the right spreadsheet. I have several. We're doing Horde first. I was right. Okay. I'm rosy-eyed. It's just nostalgia. It's just nostalgia. What doubly irritates me, though, if you'll forgive me, Blade Duvall, is because you didn't give any examples. And I don't want to sound harsh, because I know you're at work, and I know you're not paying so much attention. I don't expect you to, especially for a game you have no interest in. However, I can't respond to something without you giving examples, if that makes sense. Yeah, I know, I can't fix it, Calder. We're just going to live with it. We're just going to live with it for right now. So, like... Yeah, 108 negatives to gameplay. I don't know what else to add to that. I'm definitely being too positive about this game. Allow me to share some of the story negatives I've given specifically, because we keep talking about the story. So first of all, everything about Mount Hyjal. Let's just talk about that for a second. The total lack of main story quest when it came to the Draenei stuff. Blood Mist, Blood Mist, Blood Mist, Blood Mist. That's not actually a joke. It's like, okay, so Blood Mist Isle's main story quest was crap. Blood Mist cutscenes, we actually already talked about, are garbage. Blood Mist has terrible story sequencing, and Blood Mist also has terrible secondary quests. That's all it's just Blood Mist. Sunstrider Isle, which is badly written. Everything to do with the Dwarf and the Elven. We actually talked about that earlier. Everything to do with the Night Elves and Ghostlands. That's in Ghostlands. Everything to do with Ghostlands. That's Ghostlands again. And then we have everything to do with Hellfire Peninsula's approach to Blood Elves being Sith, which is its own thing. Now, that's actually it so far for story negatives. But what this really boils down to is a lot of the stories haven't really been given positives. Let me explain the positives we have given so far. Let me go through the list, okay? So I'm going to skip the dungeon stuff. Let's just go through the main story stuff. So, first of all, we scooch down a little bit to an opening cutscene. I do think it's a good opening cutscene. It does some good indicator. It shows some of the new classes, shows some of the new zones, and it kind of gives you an idea what we're after. We're going after Illidan. Cool. Why? Don't ask questions. We'll give negatives for that later. So then we have the crash site for the Draenei, which was really good. We've just barely crashed. Oh my god, what's going on? We're poisoning the nearby... The ship pieces are literally poisoning the nearby terrain and flora and fauna. We need to try and fix that, and we need to try and find our own people who are scattered around here and help them together. Good stuff. Cool. First positive. First real positive, if you will. Second positive. Azure Mist visual and environmental storytelling. It's actually a fairly basic looking forest, which is why there's only one positive, except for the fact that there are chunks of broken ship and crystals. And every time you go near a giant chunk of broken crystal or ship, what do you find nearby it? Mutated or insane wildlife and plants, which have gotten up and are trying to kill us at every opportunity. So we can literally see exactly what it is that is happening. Even if we can't read a single word of dialogue, this is environmental storytelling 101. Even if we can't read any of the dialogue, we can see that the crash of the ship is causing issues nearby, right? Music direction. Now, this is actually for the Draenei in general, not for any specific zone, but the Draenei music is really good. We'll actually be hearing it again. Zangarmarsh, so that's music direction. There's a single moment that's actually really good. It's when we see the Night Elf Priestess, and who's like, oh my god, you're demons. I do like that moment. It's a good moment. Then there's the connection point between the Draenei and the Alliance, which is essentially the main story plot of Azure Mist. So that's your positive there. Exodar is pretty. Exodar has background lore. And that's it for the Draenei. Not a lot of positives. Scrolling down a little bit. So obviously, Eversong Forest is gorgeous. That's your brickwork. And Blood Elven architecture is gorgeous in general. That's just all the zones. So that's your next brickwork. Then there's the Blood Elven music, which in addition to being good music in general, is good music directions. Well, just like how the Draenei music puts you into the vibe and tone and feel of what it's like being a Draenei, the Blood Elven music is this moroseful, we used to be at the peak of our civilization, now we're a fallen civilization, kind of. You can literally hear it in the tones and the song. Then we move on to visual storytelling. Blood Elves. Everything about the Blood Elven lands, especially Eversong, does a lot of visual storytelling. We have magic-propelled furniture. We have over-reliance on servitors because they have so few people. We have the wretched who physically jam crystals into their body to try and feed their magic addiction. We have plants and trees that were literally constructed with magic, which look and stand out from the more natural terrain around them. Everything about these tells a story of where these people used to be and how, and if you play the quest, which is unrelated to this, you see how those things are starting to fall apart around them now that they can't maintain them anymore. That leads me to the main story quest of Eversong, and just everything about that, telling all the stuff that I've already told you about. I'm just going to push over that. Then there's foreshadowing in Eversong because all of these plot threads come up through the rest of BC. Then we have the brickwork of Ghostlands, rotten forests and broken villages all over the place. Yes, this used to be a well-populated residential center that is now just completely overrun by the dead and the damned. Yes, positive to brickwork. The Ghostlands MSQ is actually surprisingly interesting too. We have the internal consistency with several other things in the story. We have presence of the military and the mages and the Forsaken and how they each approach storylines differently and how they're all trying to deal with Darkhan. Then there's the plot. Now, this is actually kind of something that I'm sort of cheating on because it's technically a plus to Wrath, but Sylvanas is pulling some strings to try and force the Blood Elves into the Horde. And even if you don't know anything about that, it's very clear that she is absolutely pushing for this for whatever reason. Then we have the background lore of Silvermoon. I actually gave this positive off camera. The roaming emissaries, the Paladin Quarter, the tiny plot of land where you have the druid and the shaman, the band, the reprogrammed golems which wander around. It's background lore, right? The moment walking through the dark portal. I'm never going to apologize for giving a plus to the fact that walking through the dark portal is a great moment. Not just because it's well designed and well visually presented and most audibly presented, but also the fact that it really they did something I've talked about a lot. They knew where your camera was going to face. And so they were like, here. And they made sure you see planets in the distance and a warped alien sky and like magic flowing through the air and that wonderful audio cue that plays every time you go through the dark portal. You are now in another world. Great moment plus to story. Brickwork, Hellfire Peninsula. I've already been showing this off. Just look around. Just look around. This is not normal. This is a blasted hellscape, and everything about this screams brickwork. Also, atmosphere, which, it's primarily the first half of the story, but still. The Fell Orc Chain, already mentioned that earlier, and the Pilgrimage Chain, already mentioned that earlier. The visual storytelling, also Hellfire Peninsula, and then the visual storytelling of Honor Hold. I didn't mention that much, it's over there, and I'm on a Horde character, so I'm not going to show it off. But Honor Hold, you can actually feel, once again, based on environmental storytelling, how that fortress, that one tiny spit of fortress, has been able to hold on for, I think I wrote it down, 17 years. I think. Hang on. 18, excuse me. For 18 years. How they've been trying desperately to hold on for the last 18 years while cut off from all resources other than further into Outland. Then there's Shatterpoint, which is awesome. The floating peninsulas and stuff are there. And there was the quest chain. We actually gave one quest chain over there. It was the one with the broken, its own positive. That was a great quest chain. I stand by that. And then we have the music here. And then we have the Blood Furnace, which was a dungeon, but it still counts. Blood Furnace again. And then finally the conclusion of the Fell Orc Blood Chain with Magtheridon. And that's all the positives so far. Forgive me for those of you who don't give a damn, because that's like 40 positives I just ran through. But I wanted to give a point-by-point explanation of what I've been giving positives for and why. You may or may not notice, if you know anything about how my system works, that most of those, you look at that, it's like, oh my god, it's 40 positives. That's low. Almost every, in fact, hang on, let me double check. Yes, every single one of those positives was one positive for like a zone in some cases. That's actually not good, to be completely blunt. For a game this large, for a game we've been playing for several days, we're on what now? VOD 12? 40 positives across 12 VODs? That's pathetic. These should be doubles or triples. They're not, because this is BC. BC kinda sucks. Yeah, we're going to start seeing multiple positive cutscenes, multiple positive moments, and multiple positive quests when we start to get further into the game. Yeah, this is why I wanted to start here. I wanted to start with what is functionally the worst content of the game. Also, it's in order. That's just coincidental. Yeah, when we get to Legion, when we get to Pandaria, when we get to War Within... Now, forgive me for sounding exasperated. I apologize. I shouldn't sound exasperated because that's going to discourage people from giving me feedback. And I don't want to discourage people from giving me feedback. I absolutely do value people doing so, and I do want people's opinions and perspectives, even if I disagree with you. Something I try to say periodically is I want people to tell me they disagree with me, even if I disagree with them. I like double checking and I like triple checking. But as of this moment, I am at the point of how now quadruple checking my thoughts on this game so far. Hang on, Rax said something I wanted to address here. So weird question about BC. By the way, I know a lot of people say TBC. You will never hear me say that because saying TBC out loud is just awkward. Anyways, weird question about BC. I'm not sure you can answer. Will Midnight take the Drowned Eye and Blood Astartes zones and to bring the stories up to modern day? Will the BC stuff be painted over for more than just a game design? Truth be told, I have no idea, and frankly, I don't think anybody does. Nobody... Yeah, TBC. To be continued. This is BC stories. So I shall take a drink. I don't know. We don't know. Midnight is coming out in about a year from about now, and we have a lack of information on exactly what they're going to be doing, why, and what. We know there's going to be a revamp, they have the tech and capacity to make it a completely separate zone. They've done that before. Or they might just, as you say, pave over Silvermoon and Quel'Thalas and just do that. Who knows? And that's the honest answer there. Interestingly enough, if they pave over several of those zones and remove them from the game, then a lot of positives and even more negatives are also going to be removed from the review because they're gone at that point. So, who knows? Alright, am I on the right character? Am I doing this right? Okay, where are we at? 1 hour mark, almost done the thing. That's fair, Blade Cheval, and very, very honest. And I do, again, take full ownership of that fact. I do stand by my statement. 42 to 12 is a terrible ratio for 12 VODs. It's actually, in fact, if I was just to stop right now, that would be such low density. Like, if I was just to randomly, magically say, you know what, I'm going to rate this game right now. This would not rate very well. Hang on. I'll even give you a run through of that really quick. Give me a sec. So let's just presume. So it's going to be that much, and then this much, and then... Okay, so if I were to review BC right now, and this is obviously a little bit of, like, quick and dirty, it would get a negative 120 golden number. Anyways. Put that back. There's your drum roll. Negative 120. And that sounds about right. This has honestly been pretty arduous, and the only reason it's been tolerable is because I've been chatting with you guys, and because we finally had a Hellfire where I can just, actually do this. Yeah, that's effectively one zone, too. I suppose that's true, Lord Harriman, but I'm just making a point. I understand your... God, I wish we would stop doing that. I understand your point, Blade Cheval, but the problem is, no matter how I look at it, I just don't agree with it. Anyways, no offense. It's just, I see where you're coming from, and Lord knows the story has been the kind of thing that is a huge amount environmental. And if you don't value environmental storytelling, it's not going to be anything for you, because all you have at that point, like, let's do an experiment, really quick, and then I'll let this go. Let's get rid of all the environmental storytelling positives, all of them. So, give me a second. I'll do this separately so I don't mess with my my sheet here. Okay, so let's get rid of all of this. So that's nuked. And then get rid of this. That's nuked. And yeah, okay. So right now, we would have plus 12 to story. And I believe all the negatives are still there. So negative 12 to story. So it would be a net 0 to story if we got rid of all the environmental storytelling. I mean, this is BC, Uzumaki. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. BC will probably score the worst of all the expansions. The only ones that might challenge that are BFA and Shadowlands. Now, let's go ahead and assume for a moment that you haven't been paying attention, or you've just clicked the timestamp that I may or may not have actually put into the YouTube VOD. I'll see if I can figure out how to do that. I don't actually know how to do that off the top of my head. So. Moving on. And yeah, I'm going to stop doing these kind of derailments because we do need to get some kind of streaming done today. So let's start Zangarmarsh. Okay, so what the hell are we and where are we doing? So let's do a very, very quick one and done, right? So, what's been happening so far? Obviously, we're on the Horde, but it doesn't actually matter all that much. I mean, Bank of America is one of the worst banks in America, so that tracks. I think you're right, Uthor. We'll see. We'll see. Yep, no stream. Go back to bed. So, the Orcs, the Horde, the Alliance both have charged in. The Alliance found Honor Hold, which was the outpost from Warcraft 2. You don't need to know Warcraft 2. What you need to know is that they've been here for 18 years in this blasted Helllands, cut off from external resources. We are their first lifeline in almost 2 decades. Oh, thank God you're here. Whew. Listen, though, a lot of stuff's going on. Please help us with it. Meanwhile, what's going on? There's these orcs who are now fell orcs. That's weird. Nobody likes that. Go deal with that. We find out where that's coming from. We find out how they're draining a demon. We stop that. Cool. Next, we have to think about the Blood Elves. The Blood Elves are on a pilgrimage trying to reach their promised land and get the hell out of Dodge. They're dying and having trouble and barely getting across the zone. And all of these kind of funnel us west into the Zangarmarsh. Now, when we get here, you'll notice the zone is a little bit less hell-blasted than the zones we've been seeing so far. In fact, it's almost constantly raining here. Zangarmarsh, they've already mentioned this, is one of the only reasonable sources of water on the planet at this point. Water is actually a fairly rare resource on Outland. Probably because it's not actually a planet anymore. It's more like a chunk of land that happens to be floating in the nether. So, we're here, and there's this group called the Cenarian Expedition. Now, we've already met these people. The Cenarian Expedition are... Yeah, Zangarmarsh used to be very different. Almost all of this used to be underwater, by the way. For a little bit of perspective, all of this used to be underwater. If that doesn't sound impressive, think about how much the water level has gone down. Like, people think, oh, it's just going down like a few hundred feet. In real life, especially on a scale like this, water should only go down like by feet. Not by this, Yeah, this used to be the Zangar Sea. Anyways. So the Cenarian Expedition is a group of druids. They are here specifically to try and do what they can to help salvage the land. I'm going to just give this away now, because I don't feel like discussing it, but their primary goal is trying to make sure that Outland doesn't fall apart. This is a chunk of land floating in the nether. This is an extremely unstable environment, and Outland is very, very dangerous to live on, in part because of all of the wild alien nature of what this place is. Outland is quite literally already falling apart. I'm not skipping ahead in the story because you were looking around and paying attention in Hellfire at the environmental storytelling. Look at this place. But even if you're not looking at all this crap over here and how hell-blasted it is and the giant chunks of crystal and all that, what you probably noticed was there are several quests that specifically take you to the edge. In fact, if you were paying attention, and I don't blame you if you weren't, several of those quests actually specifically mentioned how the edge chunks of it are drifting into the void. And you notice there's just chunks of earth, up in the sky. And when we actually get to one of the edges over here, look at this. It just starts to crumble more and more the further out you get. This used to be part of a connected wall right there, and it's just slowly been breaking apart and drifting out over time. This is the fate of Outland if the Cenarian Expedition does not get on it. And this is going to require a tremendous amount of effort from a large concerted group of people who are very skilled at both shamanistic and druidic magic in order to try and keep this continent, because that's what it is at this point, cohesive. How does it still have an atmosphere? Well, you see there's this thing, Linnea, called Shut Up. All right, so, moving on. I don't know. And yeah, the best case scenario, this is important. The best case scenario is stagnation. I need to emphasize that. What the Cenarian Expedition is doing is they're trying to prevent it from sliding more. Reclamating Outland might not actually be possible. There's a wonderful, very, very minor visual storytelling touch in Old Soldier, where Varrock he grabs a bit of the wheat and squeezes it between his fingers, and the wheat just kind of disintegrates in a way that it shouldn't, because the land is so difficult to work that even just something as basic as wheat has trouble growing in Outland, and that's in Nagrand, which is one of the best and most reclamated spots for the Cenarians. Anyways. And yeah, that makes perfect sense, Blade Jamal. I understand completely. Yeah, Nagrand is green. Nagrand has water. Nagrand has like an ecosystem. Zangarmarsh is on the verge of total collapse, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So let's actually go ahead and start doing these quests that I'm kind of telling you about. So we get here, and our job is to help these people. Yeah, Nagrand has a freaking functional sky. Think about that for a second. So.
Goddess bless you. May the stars guide you. Go in peace.
We came to Outland expecting to find small pockets of life. What we discovered in Zangarmarsh was a lush environment with a thriving ecosystem. Our initial assessment of the area was deceiving, however. The water levels in the lakes and marshes have consistently been going down since we started taking measurements. The impact this could have on local animal and plant life is disastrous. Go to the Umberfen Lake, southwest of here, and look for clues related to this water depletion.
Goddess watch over you.
So there's our main story quest plot hook right there, right off the gate. This place is thriving, but the water levels are going down. Why the hell are the water levels going down?
Elune light your path.
Before you leave the refuge, make sure you speak with Warden Hamut. He's in charge of security. He'd never forgive me if I didn't send a seasoned adventurer like you his way.
Asha Fela.
And that's a dungeon.
Asha Fela.
That's a dungeon. Are we doing those dungeons on these characters? I'm sorry, one second. Let me check my notes. We are doing Underbog, which is neither of those two. So let's go ahead and head over here.
How may I help?
Have you observed your surroundings closely? This is an ailing landscape, struggling to keep itself in balance and losing the fight. If you know where to look, you can see the symptoms. Members of some species rapidly outgrow their peers and become more aggressive. A good example of this is the uncontrolled growth of the marsh trekker boglosh. If you wish to see it for yourself, look no further than the waterways south of the refuge. Be prepared to defend yourself. The creature knows no mercy.
Farewell.
Yeah, ignore the giant pump. Just ignore that. It's cool. It's cool. Everything's fine.
Peace, friend.
Yazael sent you. Of course I can use someone like you. We're always in need of a little muscle.
Be careful.
While the druids from the expedition have made themselves busy studying plants and researching lakes, I've been at my business to deal with the hostiles. Ever since we've set foot in Zangarmarsh, the Naga have launched lethal attacks against us without warning. We've done our best to keep them at bay, but our resources are limited. I want you to go to the various strongholds and show them we're not to be crossed. Bring me their claws as proof of your victory.
Ancestors watch over you.
I mean, okay, so that would involve evacuating a fairly large number of people. But other than that, not much really, Colgrim. I mean, I know that sounds strange, but imagine if Earth was blasted to the point where the only continent left was, like, Eurasia, right? And then we're like, all right, what if we just let Eurasia crumble into the nether? So we have to evacuate a couple of people before we do that. Other than that, though, it's just, well, that's the end of that. I'm not saying I disagree with that idea. In fact, actually, something I've been saying for a while is we should evacuate 2 Outland, because I think that would be a very interesting story beat and something that would make a lot of sense considering some things back home. But that's just me.
Greetings.
The lakes of the Zangarmarsh are slowly being drained of their water. We don't know why. We do know many plant species are in danger of becoming extinct. As the expedition's cataloger, it's my job to track and identify these plants so we can better understand what's happening to them. If you'd like to help, bring me some unidentified plant parts. They can be picked up from the ground if you're an herbalist, and the indigenous creatures can also carry them on them.
Elune light your path.
The Naga are terrible, yes, but even more terrible are the traitor tribes of the broken and the lost ones that are helping them. The worst of all are the lost ones of the Umberfen. They use dark magic to trap and enslave others. They're especially cruel to escaped slaves and would slit my throat if I left the refuge for even a day. Travel to Umberfen south of here and kill them and their leader. Until then, I fear for my life every single day.
Luck to you.
And so there's our initial arc. Plants are going weird. Monsters are going weird. There's local tribes, which are awful. And, of course, we've got the Naga. Now, so Rax and Blade Tavella both put me into a slightly different perspective. So I'm going to stop approaching this from the perspective of a lore run and start approaching this from the perspective of a lore run. So we don't really know who or what the Naga are. And that's fine. We don't need to yet. All we know right now is the Naga are here and they're bad news, for whatever reasons. Now, if you're paying attention, we do know who the Lost Ones and the Broken are. We had an entire quest chain, which got a positive, back in Hellfire Peninsula about that. The Broken and the Lost Ones are Draenei who have been mutated and warped by the fell and nether energies of what happened to Outland. Fairly basic. Excuse me. And so, we also know that most of them end up, for the purposes of trying to survive, selling their tribe out to some local group or another. But here we have an entire tribe that's sold out. So, we're going to go wipe out this entire tribe. Cool. Yeah, the Broken are a retcon. We've actually already talked about that. I'm not going to repeat that here. Listen, this tribe deserves to die. And the funny thing is, that's kind of true. There's not a lot of ifs, ands, or buts about this. These people are slavers. Oh yeah, so let's talk about visual storytelling. So, hey, it's visuals. So we're in Zangarmarsh. In all honesty, Zangarmarsh might be another one of those one positive to story or brickwork kind of a deals. Obviously, we've got... It looks like a swamp. There's the constant rain. The music is very Diablo 2, because it's the same composer. Mushrooms everywhere. The mushrooms are functionally the trees here. This is... I know I said I wouldn't approach this as a lore run, but this is a nod to Warcraft 2. Back in Warcraft 2, there were no trees on the Outland tiles during the Dark Portal expansion. Instead, it was all mushrooms. So this is our acknowledgement of that. I kind of like how they wove the Zangar into the narrative of Draenor. It's relevant here, and it'll be much more relevant when we get to Warlords. Are you referring to Jackass Uthor? Probably the single worst person in frickin' that worked at Blizzard. God.
You wish to speak?
You must help me get out of here. I was gathering herbs nearby when these savages abducted me. I tried to fight them off, but there were too many. Help me return to the Cenarian Refuge. Actually, I'm going to wait on that, because that's an escort quest. We'll come back there. I mean, Bobby Kotick is the worst, but he didn't work at Blizzard, did he? Thank you, Agamemnon. I try, though I fail. No, that's splitting hairs. Bobby Kotick purchased Blizzard. He didn't work at Blizzard. Sorry, so I was talking about visuals. I mean, he is basically the banished one at this point. And by basically, I mean literally. I should mention something really quickly. In general, I prefer to not do some of these quests in a group. And to explain why a little bit, several of these quests, especially the drop quests, well, there's no nice way to say this, but it's being slowed down by the fact that we're doing these in groups. Now, that's not always true, but I've already noticed that trend in several zones that we've done so far. Now, you might think, that's awful, and you're right, because that's BC, which will get the co-op negatives. Of course it will. Now, I have to very suddenly AFK. I'm going to go get up someplace safe. And then go up someplace safe. There we go, and I'll be right back. would a thug have a banana? Yeah, one of the things a lot of people don't understand about most things, but game development is especially true about this, is a game coming out is not when a game was being worked on. I know that sounds strange, but you may or may not be surprised with how many people will say, oh, well, Shadowlands came out at this point in time. Therefore, clearly they were working on Shadowlands like the month when it came out. Like, that's especially true when it comes to MMOs. That's true with games in general. Now, that's true with movies, it's true with stories, or stories, television. You get it. I can't remember, there was actually something earlier this year where that came up where someone's like, oh, well, such and such came out at this point, therefore your point isn't valid. And I was like, they were working on this years before that. Hell, we talked about that with FF16, remember that? I brought up in FF16 how much of that game was being worked on during COVID, and people are like, that was years ago, and it's like, yeah. That is a true statement. Anyways, but yeah, the removal of some of the jackasses from Blizzard. Honestly, we didn't even really truly start feeling the effects of that until Dragonflight, and honestly, I think that shows. Yeah, actually, yeah, FF14 Dawntrail, another perfect example of that. Down you go. So, this quest sucks. You have to kill several enemies, several specific enemies, and some of them only spawn in small numbers, so you end up having to re-go kill through these, and you end up with the cherry-picking problem already. So that's its own problem. We need to go... Has he not shown up yet? I know it's weird, Mr. Red. Up. Oh, that's not him. There he is, though. I see him. Alright, boy. Time to meet your maker. Oh god, I'm sorry, take it all. See you around, Huthor. Alright, now that Huthor's gone, I can finally bash this game. I've been holding back, because he's had a gun to my head this whole time. So I'm going to try to finish the initial scenario quest here before the lunch break. I'm probably not going to succeed. Let's see how well we do here. There we go. So, what the hell is this nonsense? There's this thing there. It's a pump of some kind. It's a water pump. Oh, what do you want, sis? Not that you can hear me. What are you talking about, Archeonvale? Guys, I think Archeonvale's losing it. They're seeing positives where there weren't. Bojangles. Ha! Lol. Now, we're not actually going to kill too much here, honestly, because this is a drop quest, and that's exactly what it sounds like. But you don't need to finish it here. This is a weird one. Sometimes they'll experiment with the design where you get a quest that's supposed to be done across other quests. Most people don't do that, though. They'll just sit here and grind out the one quest on the one spot. Pro tip, don't do that. I know nothing indicates it, but if you see something to go loot 50 thing off of a type of enemy, maybe just move on and then think about coming back to that later. So, let's go turn in the We Genocided the Tribe quest. Thank you, Holy Wake. I will finally sleep comfortably at night. Were I not so old and weakened, I would deal with my own enemies. Take this gold. It's not much, but your kindness cannot go unpaid.
So long.
Come on. Soon after I escaped the Umberfen, I holed up in a cave south of their village. Little did I know the cave was being fought over by marsh beasts and spore men. I had to leave in a hurry and left behind a box containing my only worldly possessions. After managing to sneak out with my belongings, it was a terrible irony I would lose with them so soon after. If you're willing to bring them back to me, I'll give you one of my own personal items. What do you say? No, I didn't, Yura, because we're going to do that here.
Go on, then.
Poor cow. Don't worry, we'll help her.
I am honored. Goddess watch over you.
Ikian's highs have been telling me stories about what Icky and I, oh god, I don't know how to pronounce it. He's been telling me stories about what happened to him down in those caves. I think it's just awful. You know, maybe we should do something to help with the poor Sporelocks. Ikian says that they live in the Fungor Cavern, but the marsh beasts have recently invaded. Why don't you go down there, see if you can clear out some of the marsh beasts? It's just to the southwest.
May the stars guide you.
How may I aid you?
In your accounts, you may have encountered some of our expedition watchers. They do the majority of the field work, documenting unique inhabitants, collecting samples, making contact with sentient species. The safety of the watchers is paramount. We've had to recall the watchers we sent to Fungor Cavern because of the marsh beast attacks. The warden believes that killing their leader will bring a swift end to their attacks.
May the
Yeah,
eternal
okay.
sun shine.
I'm also going to grab this wanted. These quests, anytime you see a wanted quest, there's not much story behind these. These are like, hey, go kill a boss for some bonus experience and loot. So, that's what those are. If you're ever wondering.
Peace be with you. Ashak Fenag.
Naga! Well, you should go do other quests before you do that. Right, that's a good idea. Trying to maintain... Ooh, I like smoothies. That's a good idea, sis. Because I'm not feeling super well either, as the start time today indicates. I feel like Zangarmarsh is more of a brickwork than a visual storytelling positive. I know the distinction seems minor, but the point is, there's a lot of effort to make Zangar look like Zangar. But, like, there's not a... It's unlike Hellfire, where the environmental storytelling was doing a lot of heavy lifting. Here it's mostly just, it's a deep swamp covered in mushrooms. Now that's fine. And there's one exception to that. Is this game actually fun? I think this game is fun. Yeah, no, it's pretty, for lack of a better way to put it. I mean, look at it. It's pretty. A lot of effort was put into making the mushrooms look appropriately chaotic across the zone. And a lot of effort was put into making the ground... I mean, just look at the ground for a second. Right? So we've got, like, our bog standard... I don't know what that is. Little bits of mushrooms growing up out of that. And then over here we've got algae and spores and grass. And it gets across the vibe, right? As Uthor would say, a lot of vibe positives here. So let's go ahead and go over here. Work. Zangarmarsh. When we come back from the lunch break, I hope to talk about class design a little bit. Oh yeah, music. I think I'm willing to go ahead and give that another positive. Just the one, again. Mobile game equivalents. No. Well, no, I suppose that's not true. FF14 Final Fantasy XIV is getting a mobile version. What is this timeline? So, normally never do what I'm about to do. We got this. Wait, where's... Oh, I can't... It's out of range. Oh, God. Why only one? Well, because it's not that much? I don't know how to better explain that. It's not that good, I suppose, would be the answer to that. Oh, it's going to make tons of money, Cashel, and that sort of disgusts me. To be completely honest with you. Like, no offense to people like mobile games, sis, but the thought of there being a mobile FF14 just honestly disgusts me. I'm just going to be honest about that. Just, that's awful. The long-term potential for how much that could cause deleterious effect on gaming as a whole down the line is huge. I mean, Square have been one of the worst developers when it comes to how much they dump garbage on the mobile space roll. Remember when they had something like, I think it was 16? We actually sat and counted. At one point, they had over a dozen individual mobile games going side by side. And all of them were crap to some extent or another. Some of them had some better points, to be interesting, like Record Keeper had some cool stuff, and the Kingdom Hearts one had some cool stuff. But then they were all trash to some extent or another, and some of them were really, really bad. I don't have that's fine. Yeah, I mean, everyone points to hate all the bravest, but no, it goes down from there. Well, that depends, doesn't it, Linearov? Be honest with me. Do you really think they're not going to microtransaction gotcha the hell out of it? Square. And there's our belongings. Never! Why would I stop casting shadow spells? I don't have the ability to cast non-shadow spells. I mean, I do, but I'm not going to. More shadow! By the light of darkness, I destroy all that stands in my path. Don't do it, Yura. Don't do it, it's a trap. Sure. Okay, God, how do I explain this? So the primary gameplay loop in this game is doing quests. Quests are exactly what they sound like. You talk to an NPC, they're like, hey, here's what I need you to do, and here's my story explanation for why I want you to do this thing. Then you go do it. And the content we're in right now, which is the worst content in the game, we tend to go do very, very simple quests. We call these X of Ys. I need you to go kill X number of things, or loot Y number of things. Make sense? So we came into this cave because we were being told that these marsh lurkers have been overgrowing this place and been causing damage to the local wildlife. So we show up to try and prune their numbers a little bit, as well as to bring down their leader, which we have actually already done. While we were here, coincidentally, we also grabbed some of the belongings from one of the people back in town who had been missing that. I know, smart. Look, squishies can squish together, that's all I'm saying. Now we're trying to kill our way back out of the cave, because this is BC. I'm also slowly getting plant parts on the side. That's unrelated. Don't worry about that. In a minute, I'm actually going to get back out into the open area so I can finally get back on my mount and get the hell out of here. Okay, now I'm going to escort a Tauren who has been kidnapped by the local Umberfen tribe and try to get her to safety. She should be over here. Come on, game, pop up. Where is she? There she is. Too far north.
What brings you here?
So, yes, please get me out of here.
Ancestors
You got it.
over you.
Yes, Classic is still as pro-mod as anything else are. Is? I don't know. Well, here's an interesting question, Linareth. Can you define gotcha mechanics for me? Legally? Well, you probably won't see a lot of that right now, Arcanville, because I actually only have... I should have shared. Whatever. I only have one add-on running right now, which is Bartender. That's the bars over here. But this game has tons and tons and tons of add-ons. These are all the add-ons I usually use right here. Oh, I also have decursing. I actually forgot I had decursing going. So if you've played Elder Scrolls, that. Now, there are some limitations on what you can do, obviously, because this is an MMO. So, like, making your own new quest chains inside the game is generally considered no. However, you can do a huge amount of things with mods in this game. People have come up with some very creative, very inventive ways to do things. There is effectively a programming language that is in this game purely for modders. It's called Weak Auras. And Weak Auras, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a custom programming language, and you can do a tremendous amount of things with it. Just recently, I was doing one of the quest chains, and there was a very minor bug with it, which is a well-known bug. It was so well-known that someone actually crafted an entirely new button interaction through Weak Auras in order to be able to get through it. Yeah. That's true, Ruth. So if you want to believe that FF14 being on mobile is a good thing, that is your purview for doing something. I will not be joining you in that land because I do not have that much of faith in anything. However, let's assume for a moment you're right. There's no gacha mechanics. So how do you think they're going to make their money? Pro tip, by the way. If you ever want to figure out... Yeah, I noticed you're wearing the Pandaria shoulders there, Spartan. If you want to figure out what a company is doing that's scummy, look at how they make their money. Actually, I gave this speech to my niece very, very recently because she didn't understand how a free game could be, damaging, could make so much money. And my answer was, well, how do they make their money? And she was like, well, I don't know. And I was like, okay, let's walk through this. Let's look at this. And we looked into it. And she's like, well, but why would anyone buy that stuff? And then I gave her a hug for being awesome. But the point is, all you have to do is figure out how a specific program or software or company makes its money. And then you can start to understand what they're pushing and why they're pushing it. Roblox is a fantastic example of this. But also, I mean, no offense to the Earth, Diablo Immortal is a fantastic example of a game that makes tons and tons of money, usually off people who are not you. Like I said, no judgment. That's not what I'm in the game for. But Diablo Immortal makes millions upon millions of dollars to people who drop way too much money on the mechanics that exist in that game. And to be clear, Diablo Immortal doesn't have a lot of gacha in it. And that's sort of the point, isn't it? Yeah, if the product is free, you are the product. That's an old economic axiom, and it is very, very true. You serve as a vehicle of marketing. Your information is valuable to sell to advertisers. And the more you interact with... By the way, grats. Sorry. The more you interact with the game, the more there's the possibility of that encouraging other people to get in. And the whole idea is to try and get as many people hooked on the game as possible. Even if 1,000 people play insert game here and don't spend a single penny on it, that 1,000 people is very likely to get at least one other person playing the game who does. Thank you, Mr. Red, for voting. I appreciate it. Speaking of which, remember, the LGA votes are up. All right, so derailment aside. Also, real quick, if you know who this NPC is and why they're important, you're awesome.
The winds guide you.
You have my gratitude and that of the Watchers. They will be heartened to hear they can continue the work to the south without fear of attack.
Winds be at your back.
Leave.
Did you find my belongings? The cave is not far from Umberfen.
Roma.
I thank you. That's all I have.
Ecorta.
I thank you. As promised, I'll let you pick one of the items for yourself. I don't have much to offer, but my people have always shared what little we have.
You come back sometime.
What brings you here? Elune, my
Good. Those marsh beasts have no right to invade the home of the Sporelocks. It'd be better if these creatures would learn to live in harmony, but when that's not possible, we'll be here to take care of the situation.
May the stars guide you.
So there's our first, our second quest arc for the zone. Pay attention. I mean, Tinykin is actually a really fun game. I need to recommend it to my sister because I think she'd enjoy it. I know my niece would. And that is correct, Esmeralda Star. Very good. Let's look at our talents really quickly before we start our next quest arc. So we've gone pretty far down, but we have almost nothing on the right side of the tree. And I do want to reduce... Do I want to reduce the insanity cost of Devouring Plague? So let's look at some math here. That reduces the insanity cost of Devouring Plague by 5. Is that useful? Sure, but Devouring Plague costs 50. So what that functionally means is every 10 or so Devouring Plagues, we get a free one, right? That's not great. That's like a 10% increase in overall damage output, but that is still better than nothing. The alternative is increases the damage of Devouring Plague by 20% and causes it to deal its damage over 12 seconds.
That's the one I picked.
But it also increases the insanity cost by 5, so you're getting a 10%
Yeah, but
reduction in output. But
functionally, you won't have, like, you won't be insanity stopped.
yeah, what she says. Also,
But
as an
in like a level or so, you're gonna get one that procs and gives you 3.
plus, mathematically, both of these even out to be about the same. It's kind of a matter of preference. Do you want to cast Devouring Plague more often, or do you want it to do more damage? Both of these are kind of equal. That's how a lot of these choose talents tend to be. Either way, we want to go down the right tree. I very much want to get down to Cthulhu, which is a really nice one down here. The Cthulhu ability has a proc chance to spawn a tendril, which does Mind Flay, which generates insanity and is just like an extra pet of damage. So we want to start going down the right tree. Now, we may or may not care about Mind Melt. If we get Mind Spike, it does replace Mind Flay. That's debatable. It changes it around a little bit. Instead of being a channel 12 insanity generator, it's a single instacast, or excuse me, not instacast, no cooldown cast that generates less insanity, but again, math out to be the same. So it's a kind of a, do you want upfront, do you want channel? We're going to go and grab that, I think. We're going to grab that. We're going to try it out and feel how different Mind Spike feels. Now we're going to read this quest.
May be with you. Goddess watch over
So the
you.
Naga are behind things, but why? Would you describe that steam pump? It must be part of the cause for the water levels dropping. No matter, this explains their open hostility. Let's not waste any time. I need you to perform another task for us.
Stars guide you. Go in peace. Goddess watch over you.
We must determine how widespread the Naga's activity truly is and react accordingly. Us exploring each body of water in Zangarmarsh could be a lengthy undertaking. If you'll allow me, I will use my magic to mold your shape to one more suited to scouting the march. Here, hold this balcony. Or hold this balcony. Oh my god. Hold this amulet near the balcony. Balcony. Oh my god, I can't talk. I can't talk. I blame Lunarith. I think she's the reason I can't talk. She conflurgered my flogger bombs. So, do you remember how we had that like flight quest back in Hellfire to give us a preview of the zone, idea where things are going and where we're going to be questing? Same concept. Also, what is all that on the bottom left? So I assume you're talking about these. These are my abilities down here. These are my attack spells, my buff spells, my mounts. These are all my stuffs. This is how I do stuff. I like to put it over there in the corner. That's just a preference. You can put it wherever. Put it in the middle of your screen if you want to. So there's another one of those pumps. It's just like the structure you described in Umberfen. Does this mean the Naga are pumping water out of the lakes in Zangarmarsh? Ignore that giant pump over there. It's not relevant. So here's an actual Naga outpost. Another pump. The Naga are pumping water out of their own lake. What purpose could that possibly serve? Although I hope you like abandoned quest arcs, because we're going to cover that in Zangarmarsh. And yeah, so there's all the pipes are leading towards that central pipe right there. The central pumps facility. Those pipes appear to be connected to that structure. It can't possibly fit all the water they've been stealing. Where are they keeping it? Oh, Equalitas. Two things. First, I'm literally Hitler. Second, you donated a while ago, but you never put it towards anything. So I've had a note just waiting for you for a while there. If you don't mind. That's going to grab that. Increasing... So this increases the buff when we get something below 35% health. So we're going to go with that. Okay, so scroll up. Stars. F14. Hatch Trail. And near. You got it. Thank you. So did I play all the way through Vanilla? No. Vanilla is, in every way that matters, a separate game at this point, and reviewing Vanilla, that is to say, reviewing Classic, would be a completely different stream on a completely different thing. As the crow flies is what I just did, Spartan.
Ishnu Daldir.
Hail. As I suspected, the Naga have some pumping stations at all the major lakes in Zangarmarsh. They must be stopped if the march is to have a future.
Goddess watch over.
I cannot even begin to comprehend why the Naga would drain water out of their own habitat. What I do understand is they need to put a stop to these operations. See you around, Kenexcow. These seeds carry with them the rage of the earth. Take them to the steam pumps and use them on the controls. The vines will grow as thick as your arm and be strong as iron. Go restore the balance the Naga have upset.
May the stars guide you.
I could do that. Yeah. And no, Mad Overlord. Tyrande, even before the rebellion, was never exactly in the upper echelons of Night Elven society. No more so than someone like, say, Elisande. So I'm going to find a way in here because I need to kill Nog anyways. Ooh, jeez. Sure, I probably can't share it. No, I literally cannot share it, Spartan, sorry. Pretty much. Back in the day, you used to have to leave Shadow Form to heal. I'm really glad they got rid of that. That was annoying. Sorry, what I mean by that is it would push you out of Shadow Form, which was annoying. Which, yeah, don't have to do that anymore. We can just heal. Hey, we're done with plant parts. And my sister is still dying. All these are good things. Oh, yeah. Shoot. So Linnarith was asking questions while I was reading all that. Do I think there's no way in hell they'll make it sub with FF14? So let me ask you a very simple question, Linnarith. What would be the benefit of putting it on mobile if you would get it, you know, effectively just by having a sub to the game? For them. I mean, obviously, we have our own purpose. I mean, from the company, why would you put all that time? Okay. Why would you put all that time and effort and work into doing that if you're going to, you know, essentially give it away for just a sub? Keeping in mind, FF14 itself doesn't make most of its money off of subs.
Go up to the what you've ordered before then.
I was just going to look at the new stuff.
It's just pumpkin.
Is that it? It really is it. Wow. Okay. Ah, help.
You're not even at like 90%.
Help.
It's running away.
It's okay, he's got dots on him.
These aren't Naga. Why are we killing them?
Those are Naga.
That's a Naga. Does that raise our stave skill?
Well, if you say so, Linnarith. I have nothing else to add. I'm sorry. I am happy for you that it's coming out on mobile. It's probably a bad thing long term.
He's cold now. You give me shirt.
I know. Just turn off the fan. I think it's cold. Because they haven't been put away yet. What are you doing?
Dressing the chair.
Perfect. Thank you for dressing the chair. I don't think I've tried this one yet. So we'll do this one. It's the mango ginger.
Oh, that's what I got cast.
Oh, well, that'll be working out nicely. Goodbyes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you might be dead. It's okay, you're not playing hardcore. Right? Right? Okay, good. Because then you'd be dead.
I am playing a paladin.
Has it been fun?
Well, I have discovered some discrepancies in things.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
I have to use a holy spell to be able to cast
Yep.
Judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, because Judgment it actually
And then it
fulfills
eats-
the dot. And yeah, it nukes the dot.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not actually a dot though, because it just makes my melee hit harder.
Yeah, no, that's...
You're not supposed to land on those.
I was trying to verify where I was.
Well, you fly toward the yellow thing.
Done.
That's not the yellow thing.
Yeah, I remember a lot of my, especially in the 40s, gameplay on a Paladin was,
Yeah.
you know, put up Crusader seal and then walk away from the game for several minutes while I auto-attack.
Well, the Crusader Steel thing, the little thingy, it only lasts for 30 seconds. So.
I know. I'm being a little facetious, but really, only a little. Vanilla Paladin was, especially while questing alone, was a lot of just auto-attacking and healing when needed. Or using Seal of Light.
I don't have Seal of Light yet.
I will never forget what questing in the Badlands was like in a Paladin.
I like how you trick the fauna into, or the flora into...
Doing my job for me. Oh, okay, Linurth. Would that actually be good in that case?
Sure. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Not sure, honestly. Like, I'm admittedly extremely anti-mobile gaming, and always will be. That's never going away. But a lot of that boils down to how predatory it is, pretty much by design. Like, they have gotten extremely insidious over the years, and spent entirely too much time and effort and resources, and actual real psychologists who have studied human psychology to figure out how to make them even worse. And it's just like, we keep going downhill, right? Some of you actually saw my video a long time ago, which said, there it is, which said, hey, all the bravest sucks. And yeah, that's just we're so much worse than that. And all the bravest was just a freaking wallpaper. Like, it was a screensaver, effectively. We've gone so far downhill from all the bravest. But again, sorry, that's not what you're asking. You're asking, you know, do I think if they somehow magically put it out and it's actually, like, legit, right? It's a legitimate thing. I have a hard time saying no. My biggest concern there, and I'll go ahead and be honest about it, my biggest concern if they did that would be what that would mean for, and I'm going to say this as nicely as I possibly can, real gaming for FF14. One of the biggest problems mobile game had, even before they started monetizing the crap out of it, was that the player base for mobile games was gargantuan. It is, in fact, the largest player base in the entire world. That's still true, right? Like, as of this very moment in time, the player base for mobile is absolutely ginormous. And it destroys everything else by such a margin it's not even funny. In terms of just raw numbers, in terms of just population. And you might think, who cares? You yourself, Laura, in favor of options and people playing games the way they want to, and that's true. The problem I have with it is how many people follow those numbers. As Dakota just hinted at briefly, mobile is where games and franchises tend to go to die. Because a lot of companies over a lot of years have pushed games onto mobile, or excuse me, pushed franchises onto mobile, and then either left them there forever, or worse, then they died, right? There are many examples of this. She didn't die going upstairs, yay! But that would be my only concern with Earth. That would be the worry, is what's going to happen to FF14 off of mobile, even if they do everything else right.
I am honored.
So here's your plant parts.
Light your path.
The decrease in native species is certainly a cause for concern, but the increase in invasive species could be related to the recent disturbances in the ecosystem. I don't have enough information to make a conclusion yet. By the way, her name is Lorana. I just find that funny. Take these. They might be of some use too. Yeah, sure.
Asha Fela.
And that becomes a repeatable. Yeah, Breath of Fire is. I mean, we could play a game with that. We could come up with literal hundreds of franchises that have died because of mobile. Because the problem is, the idiots involved, right? Like it's not actually mobile's fault in the strictest sense of the word. It's moron executives who don't understand reality, or worse, don't care. Yeah, Bomberman, Front Mission, Command and Conquer, Mega Man.
Greetings. Goodbye.
Those boss quests.
Go in peace.
Kingdom Hearts, thank God, dodged that. But yeah, we did have several Kingdom Hearts mobile games. And so far, Final Fantasy has dodged that. And we've had a lot of Final Fantasy mobile games. Yeah, thankfully, Square Enix doesn't have morons for executives, right? Right?
What brings you here?
It is done then. The marsh has been saved for now. Don't think for a second this will be the last we hear of the Naga. We must remain vigilant of our enemy as we continue our mission in Outland.
Go in peace.
Ding. Yeah, there was an FF7 mobile game. I even tried it. Not really impressed. We are currently on the Horde Evo. By the way, hi. Oh my God, we look even worse. Look. Our outfit has gotten even worse. It's glorious. Soak it in. Enjoy every moment of our terrible appearance. So now that we're diving down here, we're going to go ahead and make it so that Mind Spike increases the chance. So, okay. If you've been paying attention, let me talk about class design for a second. And one of the things I talk about a lot is mutators. And I love mutators when it comes to design, right? I love mutators when it comes to changing how you play. So, for example, right now, my overall... Whoops, wrong button, sorry. My overall approach here is I start with Vampiric Touch, which puts another dot on them. Then I hit both of my Mind Blasts, and if they're still alive, I go ahead and start Mind Spiking them. However, we're about to get a talent which makes it so that Mind Spike increases the damage by Mind Blast, which stacks. So now it's flipped. Now what we want to do is we want to do a dot, then we want to switch to Mind Spike, then Mind Blast. That's a simple change, but it's kind of similar to the combo system over in FF14, but expressed in a different format. And hey, what do you know? We actually finished the Cenarian Expedition quest before the lunch break. Yay! You'll notice we're also mostly done with the water chain. Let's talk about story negatives. So, like, that's most of the water chain right there. There's a little bit more to it, as we'll show when we get over here. Because this is the Dead Mire. Nice place, by the way. But, this is a place that's already been pretty much fully drained of water. And you can see because, I mean, there it is. And yeah, all the creatures here are mad and insane and going crazy, and we're going to have to deal with these in a minute. But this is kind of it for what is effectively the main story quest of Zangarmarsh, the water going down. So I'm just going to spoil this for you because the game is terrible about this. There's this whole quest chain about the water going down, and then there's another quest chain about, oh my God, this is the results of the water going down, and the Naga are stealing all this water. Why are the Nagas? So okay, what ended up happening is there was supposed to be this big story arc about Vosh, Lady Vosh. She's from Warcraft 3, don't worry about it. And she's the head leader of the Naga here. And she's in that giant structure in the middle we saw earlier. She's the end raid boss of that particular raid. She has one line of dialogue that hints at the beginnings of some kind of plot here, which is that they're stealing the water to then have a degree of control over Outland, because Zangarmarsh is one of the only reliable sources of water on the entire continent. That's cool, interesting, and has a lot of potential that they will never do anything with, because that one line of dialogue is it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call an abandoned plot thread. We've functionally seen the entire plot thread for this already. So, that sucks. Like, the idea is there, and the interest is there, but they don't do anything with it at all. And then once we kill her, we just move on immediately. So that's cool. Do I think there's any room for real games to appear on the mobile market? There's actually plenty of real games on the mobile market, believe it or not. Balatro is on mobile, just to name one example. Ooh, I forgot to turn request. And yeah, like it or not, I love WoW to death, but just completely abandoning plot threads is going to be a thing for a while. That's just going to be our life.
I am listening.
Honestly, I would go ahead and say that it wasn't until all the way up at Legion when they really started getting good about acknowledging, oh yeah, there's this plot thread we left dangling for like 8 years. And then they would start continuing a lot of those threads and going forwards.
Asha Fela. Del Nadres. Goodbye.
Double checking which
Del
quest these are.
Nadres. Goodbye.
And yeah, the Pixel remasters are on mobile. The other one. Yeah, then it's on to Terracar. Ugh. There's important research to be conducted into the ecology of the local creatures, especially the sporelings and boglords. And trust me, once you get out in the field, you'll find the work to be challenging. Search out Watcher Liso at the Cenarian Watch Post, follow her the west path, and eventually you'll find her. She can be studious, but don't let that get to her. Oh, and watch out for her cat.
Farewell.
Yeah, then there's Terracar, where all the story is in the dungeons. There's actually one really cool plot thread in Terracar, which most people I know never even noticed. I don't blame the people on that one. And yeah, just look at it. Tell me how many bodies of water do you see on this screen? Really, Ross? Oh yeah, you asked a dumb question earlier, but I never saw it. Where is this dumb question? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Let's see. Is it on the chat log at all? Nope. I never actually saw the question. So, there's obviously nothing up there. There's nothing down here. There's nothing up here, and there's nothing over here. So that just leaves these 3 zones. If you're paying attention, Terracar has one little river-lake system. Okay, cool. Zangarmarsh obviously has tons of water, and that water actually spools out into Nagrand. In fact, the druids are literally using Zangarmarsh to rejuvenate Nagrand. So, the source of water for the floating continent here, floating out in the nether, is the Zangarmarsh. It's very, very understated. No, hit me, Ross. Hit me, please. Tell me how terrible. It's okay. I can take it. I'm tough. The major plot thread of Outland, well, more like the third, is that the whole frickin' continent is dying and falling apart. And the druids are doing everything in their power to try and restore that. All their efforts hinge on Zangarmarsh. And again, in the background, we know that they succeed to some extent or another because Nagrand is still around as of BFA. I don't really dig into that. And I can only imagine that, you know, the writers just decided they didn't care. Also, yeah, you can really tell just by looking at this map where the damage really happened. So for those of you not aware, this is out of the game now, but you see this giant portal-looking thing over here? So that's the Dark Portal. That is the epicenter of the explosion that destroyed Draenor and sent Outland into the Nether, okay? Now, if you look at this now, knowing where that spot is on the far right, you can kind of see the damage, how it radiated out from there, because the left part is primarily green, or at the very least yellow, right? There's some color there. But on the right, all you see is red, purple, and black. Can I help you? Yeah, Terracar has its own problems. We'll get there. Don't worry. We'll get there. I'm looking forward to that story arc. It's a great little story arc. You've got a little bit of mystery baked into it. But no, you're absolutely right, Fletcherville. One of the biggest complaints I have always had with WoW's main story quest stuff is that they really like to go Hollywood with it. And I don't have a nicer or less insulting way to put that. They want everything to be this really big, you know, long, yeah, it's just end of the world. And what's really stupid about that, they do this in general. Even their best games, StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3, have that exact same problem. And yet I would argue strongly that both of those games in question have really, really good story, even if they don't have particularly good main plots. Why? Because everything else is awesome. Blizzard have been very, very good at writing small and personal stories for decades at this point. What's the only individual quest in BC so far that's gotten a positive? Oh, that's right. It's the one over here at the ruins of Shinar. Why? because it was a small, zoomed-in personal quest about one broken who asked us to help free his tribe from the demons who had enslaved them, and the slow revelation of the fact that he was actually the traitor who betrayed them to those demons. At the end of the quest, he accepts the blame and shame for what he did and goes off to commit suicide. That is a great quest chain. It's some random side quest that has nothing to do with anything else. It's the best individual piece of story in this entire zone. That's Blizzard. So the fact that they always kind of like focus on the big stuff and diminish the little stuff has always kind of irritated me ever since, you know, vanilla, honestly. Like, we'll get more of it when we push down here, but just, oh my god. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm getting way off topic here. Before we move on to our next quest zone, let's talk class, now that I've got a little bit of a functional brain and my headache pills have kicked in a little bit here. And I have no idea, Bladeville. I wasn't keeping that metric at all. I apologize. So, like, if you force me to give a gut feeling, I would say Dawn Trail's better than Stormblood launch, better than FF4 ARR launch, obviously, and I would say it's worse than Endwalker, worse than Shadow, and worse than Heavensward. So I'd probably go ARR, Stormblood, Dawn Trail, Heavensward, Endwalker, Shadow, in terms of just launch. That's just very, very vague, off the top of my head kind of a thing. Class design. If you've been paying attention, we've already figured out... So for the... Sorry, I gave into the void there for a second. I am tired. I might actually lay down during the lunch break today. We've already decided how we're going to bracket out our talents. So let's go ahead and just reset everything, right? And this is how we're going to cover our classes. So remember, for the purposes of review, every single spec qualifies as a separate class. So right now we're going to talk about Shadow, and we're going to talk about Lobby Shadow. Lobby Shadow is everything that's currently selectable on the talent tree, right? So everything down to this 8 marker right here. Most of the stuff on the left is fine. This stuff is, there's not really much to add here. There's some CC, there's some live ability, there's some hots I don't really want, you know. We're going to grab that, then we're going to grab that. Just most of this over here doesn't really matter, right? So, and there's our overall low-level stuff, is all of this stuff right here. So we went ahead and made Shadow Where Death exist. We made it better. We have a couple more live abilities. We've got the Root, and we've got the ability to heal ourselves a little bit better even while in Shadow form, and that's kind of it. Nothing too fancy. Over here is where the real meat is. So even just going down to level whatever that is that's required to do that, we've got these. Here, I'll go and do this again so you can see it. So it's all of these talents right here, okay? So Lobby Shadow Priest. What does Lobby Shadow Priest feel like? Well, at this level, we get Devouring Plague immediately. We get that at level 11. Immediately after that, we can get Dispersion, which is a great live button. The ability to add extra dots to our dots. The ability to silence a target, which also counts as an interrupt. We gain the ability to, we've got 2 choice abilities. One is between Dispersion being better or Vampiric being better, and one between Silence being faster or another CC. So we've already got a little bit of our vibe of what a Shadow Priest feels like. Dots, couple of nukes, and a lot of control. Then we move on to Vampiric Touch, which also applies Shadowward Pain. All that really does is remove a global cooldown, but it also means from a play perspective that you can just apply both dots instantly. So we've already got some good quality of life features and reducing the button bloat, even at level like 18 or whatever it is at that point. Thought Harvester, Mana Blast gains additional charge, or Mind Blast, excuse me, gains additional charge, which is awesome. Psychic Link, which makes it so that we can AoE our abilities based on dots. And finally, Surge of Insanity. Every 2 casts gives us a Super Nuke proc. So all of this stuff is actually pretty good. I will say Shadow Priest is probably one of the weaker classes, especially early on. A lot of the classes get their primary kit and their primary loop by level 10, by level 20. But not every class's loop is what I would call particularly well designed that low. So Shadow Priest, I do think, is still good kit. We're putting this over here. Let's just start making the kit positives here. But I think, honestly, all of this is only one positive worthy. Now, we're going to go and reset this because now we're working on the second tier. We're currently in the middle of the second tier until we get down to, it looks like 8 more levels. We're going to be stuck in the second tier, so that's Yeah, about 50. So we're stuck in, so about 10 to, I want to say 26, and then 27 through 50. That sounds about right. So there's your two tiers. There's your upper tier, there's your middle tier. Shadow Priest has gotten a lot better in the middle tier. First of all, we get some actual real good cooldowns over here. Mass Dispel, which is situational but extremely helpful if you're fighting content that does debuffs. Power Infusion, which is extremely useful for yourself. It's a huge haste buff with only a 2-minute cooldown. You can also cast on someone else and gain full benefit from it. We get the ability to heal ourselves as a cooldown or heal ourselves constantly, and we can make that better. And we can make it so that we gain more insanity. So more throughput, more cooldowns, more options. Already good. And that's just on the left tree. When we get to the right tree, this is when our talents finally start mutating. So we have our choice of AoEs. We finally get a freaking AoE. Took long enough. We can make those AoEs better. We can make those AoEs synergize. So we're already starting to see synergies between the talents, even at this relatively low level. This makes it so that our damage dealers actually increase our dot duration to reduce the amount of upkeep we need to do on dots. That's especially important on bosses. We gain the ability to replace Mind Flay with Mind Spike. That's an optional. And the ability to buff that, assuming we decide to do that, and that changes our rotation, as I already talked about earlier. Devouring Plague also changes our insanity. This is actually a great one, by the way. It just gives you 50 more insanity. You might think, who cares? So right now we have 100 possible insanity. If we get that talent, we can have 150. Devouring Plague costs 50. This changes our burst window, or gives us more granularity in how we use them. Because we can either save up to the full 150 and then nuke, nuke, nuke. Remember, Devouring Plague stacks. Or we can have more granularity on, like, if we're in the middle of, like, say, at 98 insanity, we don't have to interrupt our rotation to cast out a Devouring Plague. We can just go ahead and let the insanity continue to build up. Also, fun fact, I don't know if I can really show this off, but the more insane we get, the more, like, void we get, and the more tentacles start growing on us. I just thought I'd share that because it's a cool little side thing, and that's part of the all-important viscerality. We won't be talking to viscerality until we're at 80, though, for those of you curious. Anyways. We have procs, we have buffs based on abilities. Yes, Devouring Plague is good. You should use it. Mind Blast, so that's another proc. So that's a proc, that's a proc, that over there's a proc. No, that's a buff, that's a buff, that's a buff, sorry. And then that is a buff. And then we have reduce the insanity cost or increase the damage. I've already talked about that. So all of this, you'll notice that once we get into the second tier of talents, the 26 through 50 stuff, this is solid, right? Shadow Priest is a lot better once we get to this. This, for anybody who plays FF14, this probably sounds familiar, right? Once you get to this level, the class gets a lot better. So I would say Shadow Priest really comes into its own at this point. It's not fully there yet, and we get the really fun stuff down here when we start following a specific old god. But still very, very good. I'm still feeling a double for the middle. And I think that's actually it for the moment, because obviously we're not at the high-level stuff. Let's go look at Warrior really quick, shall we? Sis, if you can hear me, we're at about 4 minutes out. Now, you notice we're only covering Shadow at the moment, because we got 2 other pre-specs. Don't worry, I will look at them. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. Which of my characters is the strongest? My Demon Hunter. 100%. Demon Hunter is very much a high-risk, high-reward class in lore. The first dungeon we'll be doing is Underbog, I think. Let me double-check that. Yes, we'll be doing the Underbog first. Then we'll do some quests. Then we'll do Slave Pen, Steam Vault, and the Serpent Shrine Caverns. I never saw your question. Did you never say the question? You never said the question, Ross. Oh my god. So, does it matter which faction? I think it does. Don't actually quote me on that. But we'll be doing Underbog as Horde, and the rest we'll be doing as Alliance. So let's switch over to Arms, which is what we've been leveling as. Yeah, no, the final abilities at Shadow Priest are really good. We'll really talk about them when we get there, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Okay, so Warrior, Arms Warrior, Booyaka. God, we look so terrible. Behold, behold, its glory. All right, so let's hit the reset button really quick. So, low-level Arms Warrior. On the left, we actually have a lot of really solid stuff early on. So we have increased leech, we have intervene, which allows us to dash. It's a closer, but you target a friendly instead of an enemy. Oh, hey, Mr. Red, hang on, let me scooch back here on the screen. Where are you? There you are. There we go. Enjoy that view. We have increased movement speed. We have War Machine, which is a very good momentum ability. Great momentum ability. That's the one that makes it so that your attacks generate more rage, and when you kill an enemy, you not only generate rage, but you increase your movement speed by 30%. There's the thing that changes how Impending Victory works. We get Hup, which is great movement tech. We get a single target stun. It's a very powerful single target stun. We get an AoE slow. Let's see. We also gain the ability to, when we take damage, we heal. We get to make Hup even better. We make it so that we can refund our rage cost, and we get Second Wind, which I've praised the hell. We also get an AoE Fear. This is one of the strongest low-level talent tiers right here. So even before I go any further, just the low-level stuff here, just the left side is really good. So I don't know, sis. Hang on. I'm on a paladin. Or I'm not a... Mr. Red, can paladins use axes? You're on a paladin. Okay, there you go. The answer is yes. So this is a double positive by itself. Then we go over, actually look at the arms tier. So we start off with Mortal Strike. Big ass hit. Wham! Exactly what arms should be. Our second ability is Overpower. Big ass hit that also makes Overpower or Mortal Strike better. Wham! Okay, cool. Then we get Die by the Sword. This is the one that's effectively a live button. It's alright. And at this point, Arms Warrior starts to branch out heavily. Do you want to go down the middle, left, middle, or right? Oh yeah, you're in Classic, sis. Go find a weapon trainer. You remember weapon skill? You know how I remember weapon skill? So, I'm not actually sure where it is, honestly. Oh God, where is it? There it is. Raise your unarmed skill to 400. If that doesn't sound impressive, then you don't know what that involved. Anyway, so smoothies are here, sis. Back to Arms Warrior. So, if we branch left, Overpower gets better and starts buffing. Blood Surge gives us the chance to get Rage from Bleed. No, sis, go find a trainer. Go find a trainer. Go to Stormwind. And then Overpower gets better. On the right side, we gain the ability to have Execute off of cooldown, make Execute better, and make it so we can AoE stuff better. In the middle tree, we go down towards more self-heals. A lot of self-heals in Arms Warrior. And the ability to gain a Live button or a Live button. So Arms Warrior is kind of along the lines of Shadow Priest. It's not super great. Arms Warrior, Arms Lobby. Honestly, the left tree is more impressive for Lobby arms. Thank you, Huthor. Bzz. So now let's look at the second tier, right? 26 to 50. Let's get rid of this PvP talent so it never comes back to me again. So on the left tree, we're starting to branch out a little bit more. On the left side, we have all kinds of more live abilities. This is live. We've got avoidance. We've got buffs to live and avoidance. We've got change to our throws. We've got this one. This is actually a really nice one. Your auto attacks have a chance to hurl weapons at your target and 3 near enemies in front of you. That is invaluable for tanking, by the way. But we're arms at the moment. More live, more heal, and increase the charges of the cooldowns on charge. Oh, no, I said that right. Caught myself and then I was inaccurate. Increase the number of charges of charge by 1 and reduces its cooldown. Mandatory, I would say. On the right side, we have increase our maximum rage by 15, which is very useful for Warrior because it's very easy to cap out on that otherwise. We have my sister giving me... Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are we drippy? We're not drippy. Okay, excellent. Please do not drip. I don't mean your outfit. Hey, what are you doing? Sorry, Shadow Machine. Or conversely, you're welcome. I've actually heard that from quite a few of my viewers, quite honestly. That they get more analytical because they've been watching my show. Well, that's good or bad, that's up to you. As I've said many times, there's a value in just being able to turn off your brain and enjoy something for a while, right? And no judgment. I don't mean that as any kind of an insult. Really. Is that yours? I assume that's yours.
Yours is green.
That's either spam or Wikipedia. I'll look at that later. Yeah, if I could like push up the general media literacy in the world by like 0.00001%, then I've done my job here. Is it good? Okay, apparently it's not good. Sorry. So the left tree is fine. A lot of this is utility and live abilities.
Do I really have to punch things to be able to train axes?
Did you not? Huthor even linked you a link right there. That's where the weapon masters are. You have to go.
I left right after punching
Oh,
things.
that's funny. No, you have to go find a vendor and give them money and say, please tell me how to use an axe. And they say, you grab the haft.
Is there one in Goldshire, Huthor, or do I have to go to Stormwind?
It's Stormwind. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Fine. I've got an axe that does 1 point more damage.
Whoa! Now, that sounds like a joke, but this is classic we're talking about. Whoa, whoa. So that's not actually a thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Maverick says you actually have to go to Ironforge for axes.
The fuck?
Well, no, because weapon trainers used to be dependent on race.
So if I had been a dwarven paladin, I could have used axes?
Yeah.
Well, I was almost a dwarf.
What's funny is I could be misremembering this, but I feel like you had to go to Darnassus for bows, and some people didn't know how to. So, yeah. Anyways.
I started with a wooden hammer.
Wonk. Wonk. Yeah, I think Maverick is correct. I think you'd still have to train it, but it'd be right there. I mean, why do you think they added that stupid subway in between Stormwind and Ironforge? And then they didn't do anything for Darnassus, because who cares about Darnassus?
And
right?
gnomes just didn't have a home city.
They get to be your dwarven refugees. Enjoy.
Yep.
I was right. It is bows and Darnassus. Wow. Yeah, no, it's a thing. I don't want to dismiss... I mean, you like FF11, right, Rex? Now imagine FF11, but with no story. Okay, no story is an exaggeration. Very, very, very little story. But more. Isn't there visual storytelling?
Sure.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think that's how we'll answer that question. Yes. All right. So, Arms Warrior, middle tier. So hang on. Let me find my lines here because I'm actually okay. So it's there in okay. So middle tier. See you around, Evo. Good luck in your game. Have fun. I mean, that's true. Not all visual storytelling can be Mega Man. I like how Mr. Red actually AFK'd out, by the way. That's hysterical. It's not. I don't.
Flash sat. He was just dancing.
Nope, he's AFK. I was right.
Oh, well, he AFK'd out while he was dancing.
This is freaking me out. That is, look at that. Look at that.
Yep.
That's terrifying. How to eat this. Look, plastic is delicious. I should know I eat it every day. What? I live on planet Earth. I can't avoid it. Microplastic. It's pretty good. Never mind.
And that, boys and girls of the stream, was Lore offering to let me try his drink and then thinking better of it because he remembered how sick I am.
Anyways. So. On the left side of the arms middle tree, we've got stuff like make... What?
Is this the thing that got fried?
Yeah.
You can see. Like it's...
What are you pointing at?
Oh, no, that's just greasy.
Yeah, no.
It looks like there was a divot in it.
I mean, it's possible there is. I don't know.
I have had nothing to eat really but soup for like 3 days, Shadow Machine.
That's why she has a smoothie right now.
So I have a smoothie. What's really funny is it's kind of hard to drink cold things.
I'm sorry. Let it sit out for a bit.
Then it won't be good. Because it'll separate into water
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
and fruit gunk.
That's fair. Freaking fruit. I hate fruit gunk.
Fruit gunk is not a good texture.
It's coarse, it's irritating, and it gets everywhere.
These small ones have gone to the in-laws
Was that for the week?
till Thursday, yeah.
Okay. Okay. We're doing Indian tomorrow, so hopefully that'll help with this. All right.
Been actually not that stuffy. I've just had the post-nasal drip.
I hate the drip more than stuffy, honestly. Personal opinion. So, what's a vindaloo?
No, Mr. Red, I'm not getting vindaloo. Vindaloo is an Indian rice dish, is what I just explained to him, because he goes, what's a... It's not a curry, it's rice.
I need to take this out. So, goodbye. The rest.
Go sequester myself in my office and turn the heater on and wrap myself in a blanket and put on my pants.
But how will you stay warm? Yeah, actually, hang on. I can show that off really quick here. Pull up your mounts tab, Ira, and I'll wait for a second so you can see what I'm looking at. At the top of the mounts tab, you'll see skywriting right there. See it?
Click it.
Yeah, you click that, and this is all your stuff.
And don't forget to turn on Let Friends Ride.
Yes, that's this one right here.
Mandatory. Your skywriting doesn't work without it.
Yep. And then you just drag all this stuff out. And actually, that's a fair point. You can also go to your spellbook, your general tab with the lit, and there's all your skywriting abilities right there, too. There's 2 ways to do that. So anyways, Arms Warrior. I swear at some point I'll talk about this. Before the lunch break. Jesus Christ. The left tree. So the left tree of Arms Warrior gives us reset rage spent, so that's cool. Skull Splitter, which is a new ability, pretty decent cooldown, big hit, also causes your rend and deep wounds to bleed faster. So in other words, it's the same dot, but because it's ticking faster, the DPS is going up. Well, absolutely, pillagers no. I was going to save talking about that until we get to Kata. I should make a note about that, though. Hang on. All right, back to the game. Hem. Rend. Now, Rend is fairly simple. It's just a dot. It's a bleed. But bleed is great. First of all, not a lot can be done about bleeds. There's not a lot of dispelling that. Second of all, Rend has a lot of synergy for arms. Plenty of other abilities, looking at you, Thunderclap, also apply bleed. And several of your abilities, which we've already gotten, give you a chance to heal and gain range and all this stuff for bleeding. So, bleeds are good. You want some kind of bleeding on an Arms Warrior, just because it gives you tons and tons of synergy. You don't need it, though. You don't have to lean into that. Overpower becomes an execute. That's nice. Deep wounds and all those all your bleeds do more damage. Cool. Then we have a choice. Overpower does an AoE, or Overpower does more damage and more crit damage. Nice. Middle tree. Obviously, we have Colossus Smash. I've actually already grabbed that. I've already told you that. That's a big-ass hit and a decent cooldown, but also increases damage they take for a while, so that's a vuln, an imperil. Then we get to choose. Every 20 rage you spend reduces the remaining cooldown on several abilities, or those abilities are increased, their durations, are increased by double, but the damage bonuses are reduced. So, that's kind of situational there. Further down, we have increase your haste, or when it expires, you get a buff, or increases damage and duration, or an even better version of it. So we already have Colossus Smash. We can also get Warbreaker, which is even better than the previous one, and also essentially turns it into an AoE. On the right side, critical strike damage is just increased across the board by 10%. Mortal Strike and Cleave have a chance to reset their own cooldowns. Execute is now usable on targets below 35% health instead of 25%. Then up here we have Sweeping Strikes last longer, or Sweeping Strikes and Cleave causes more things to do second AoE damage. Cleave, which actually replaces Whirlwind, which is an AoE. And then Cleave and Whirlwind have a chance to make your next Cleave or Whirlwind free. In other words, what we have mostly over here is AoE, 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 and so forth and so on. So, good AoE options, good bleed options, good single target nuke options. And there's enough talent connectivity across these so that you can go a little bit down one and then finish going down another. So if I want to avoid Rend for whatever reason, I can take Colossus Smash, go down to Finishing Blows, and then go down to Dreadnought or Strength of Arms and still be able to access the left tree over here, right? So once again, good freaking stuff. I'd say this is a double. And with that, we have reviewed the classes that we have covered so far. And now it is time for the lunch break. I think I'm going to try to lay down because I feel terrible. So I apologize if I end up starting stream up back again late and don't get the rest of Zangarmarsh done today. I'll see the rest of you in a bit. Oh, and sorry for being literally Hitler. With my rose-tinted goggles.